Good evening, all. Welcome to another slice of Midweek Geek. I am joined by a fulsome panel tonight. And as always, we go around in clockwise order, in the order that people joined us. And our first timer, Echo, was the first one to join tonight. So welcome to the stream, Echo.
Hey, thanks for letting me join.
No problem. No problem. If you've got anything you want to say, anything you want to ask, feel free. Dive in. Don't be shy. Then we've got Elfbait, who was beaten to the punch this week by Echo. And Sean, otherwise known as Mage's Musings. Hello. Hello indeed. And Dark Knight of Hibernia has joined us again.
Hi, guys.
And just squeaking in at the end there, we've got a familiar voice and face of Saxius, our whip-cracking, stay-on-topic man.
I had to get you on topic to actually start the stream. We can do without me.
We broke our record.
That is true. We were gas bagging away. I gotta say hello to everybody who's in chat already. There's Brian, there's Halakar, there's Roland, there's Daniel, there's Gene, and there's Michael, who've all commented so far to say hello. So hello all. How are we all doing? As always, we'll start off by talking about any gaming we've done. Just keep it brief. Of course, last Thursday, Saxius was poorly. He couldn't face putting up with goblin shenanigans, and you had to put up with student shenanigans. All Joe. Thank you, Joe. It started already. Thank you, Joe, the lawyer. Good stuff. So Saxius had to cancel last Thursday, so we're resuming goblin shenanigans tomorrow night. Then of course streamed on Friday, played some MERP on Saturday, and MERP purists will have absolutely hated the session because I didn't use a lot of the MERP rules, to be honest.
Fired.
Hello, Slan. Hello, Ian. Lots of people joining in. I basically placed a goblin encampment, not goblin, an orcish encampment in the ruins of an old Cardalan city. That's only mentioned in passing. So I thought I'll have very, very overgrown ruins and a bit of rubble, and I'll make the map up myself because no map will exist anywhere of this. And I put quite a few orcs there, and I just thought, okay, the players are just going to have to deal with it. And the way they dealt with it is they ended up getting 10 militiamen helping them. MERP combat is slow, so I only did the rolls for the player characters and the orcs that were directly in combat with the player characters. All the others, I just rolled percentile dice and compared them and just completely ignored all the other mechanics and did it that way. Because you don't need to go to the nitty gritty. But it went fine. They did a lot of planning, went pretty well, and they were successful in the end. And they rescued 3 out of 4 prisoners, which was good. Monday was Odyssey of the Dragon Lords. A better session this week. We went better than the previous week. I enjoyed it a little more this week. But, that's been my gaming. Echo, I don't believe you're playing any games at the moment apart from computer games.
Yeah, just computer games.
So hopefully you'll join in some role-playing games on our Discord, because you were telling me before it all started how you first got into second edition AD&D and all of that, but you're not currently playing anything at the moment.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff. Elfbait, how's your gaming going?
Actually got to play Monday.
Good stuff.
It was a fun session because I pretty much did the entire thing off the cuff. I mean, I had some ideas, but no pre-written encounters or anything like that. The party split the party in a huge way. one character went north several days, while the rest of the party went south by almost a week. I'm like, you're gonna go solo? We had 2 players that were out, and nobody thought to have the ghost played PCs go with the cleric thief who decided to go north. So here he is escorting some rescued prisoners back to their little homeland up in the mountains where they don't know where they're going. And the rest of the party is accompanying some of the hill giants they met to recover the corpse of one of the hill giants that had been used as a forklift by the cult of Orcus. Yeah, so here he is up in the north all by himself, and gets attacked by a special owlbear that I had prepped earlier. It's an above and beyond owlbear who is designed to take on the whole party. But he's all by himself.
He's all by himself. And
we left on a cliffhanger.
He ignored the never split the party thing.
Well, I don't mind splitting the party, especially when you have a party of 5. But nobody thought to like send the ranger with him. Ranger's played by my youngest, who was not able to attend that night, and is a pretty formidable fighter, as rangers tend to be, and also is an initiative monster, so almost always gets to go early in combat. But no, 4 went south, 1 went north, and we ended on a cliffhanger.
What game is this?
This is 5th edition.
System Ranger? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the cliffhanger was the cleric thief in a rock crevice with the owlbear trying to get to him. He was down to 15 hit points and ran, and because of a fumble, was able to get away from the owlbear. So
the dice giveth, the dice taketh away, and they gave it there.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I have to say, my MERP group on Saturday split the party a little. But that did allow the Rohirrim in the party to do his Rohirrim stuff and be badass on horseback, and nice. wading through orcs while on a horse, waving his sword and cleaving orcs in two. That's what.
And not with a sword, not a spear.
Oh, yeah, he was on horseback with a sword.
Yeah, all in all, it was a pretty useful session. I got to do some subtle world building for the players in letting them experience the world a little bit more. Had some fun NPC play where the party that went south ended up at dinner with a bunch of hill giants one night, and then got to drop some lore for the rest of the world and set up kind of the next part of the campaign, which is a big dragon fighting kind of an episode. So
yes, good stuff.
Yeah,
sure.
Musings.
Yeah, my AD&D 1E game played on Saturday. That's Team Good, not one of the ones I recap, but they lost 2 players to colds. So the remaining players, rather than continuing the existing adventure they're on, decided let's just switch gears and build up our backup characters while the other 2 are out. So 2 paladins, a ranger, a fighter or a dwarf fighter, and a cleric became an elven fighter mage thief, a monk, a cleric, a fighter cleric, and a full-blooded elven thief. So it was quite the dynamic shift.
Yes, yeah, they've gone from wading waving swords at everything to sneaking around, and being conscious,
obfuscating. Yeah.
And the player playing the monk. He's new to first ed monks, so he had a bit of a culture shock when he learned that some of their abilities are quite great if you know how to play them right. Like when
they don't have to spend key points to stunning strike or use their quivering palm.
Yeah, he was very pleased to find it was an automatic. You don't have to roll. And when a bunch of kobolds threw javelins at him, and they were all hits, and he's like, "Oh, what do I do?" So, well, you can make your saving throw to deflect them, and he succeeds in deflecting all but one. He's like, "Oh, that's amazing."
Yeah,
so
monks are badass.
Liking the monk. Yeah,
monks are badass.
But of course, if he doesn't make those saving throws, they've got an appalling armor class and very average hit.
Yeah, they've had like 1d4 or 2d4?
2d4 to start. Yeah. He has a con bonus, so he gets a little extra. But I mean, the saving throws only come into play if you're struck. So
yeah,
right.
But yeah, so pretty good. They're building up their backups. I think some of them are happy with the backups. So we'll see where it goes. But when the full team reunites, they'll be back to the main group, which is in the mid-level range, 5 and 6. Whereas these characters are now just like level 1. Well, 1 and 2. They a couple of them gain levels. So that was the exciting near miss where Neil had to cancel because 2 people last minute. Oh, I've got a cold. I don't want to come in and infect everybody.
Oh,
it's an in-person game. Nice.
Yeah. All but one of my games are in person.
Right.
so DK, you've been playing at all recently?
Just at the moment, just playing my Lords of Olympus game, and I'm prepping for my Amherst Swords and Wizardry Stonehill game and my Lion and Dragon game. The Lords of Olympus game is we're getting to the stage where the game is starting to wrap up and we're going to start a new leg, because basically the idea was that each player would swap DMing duties and take a shot at running their version of the multiverse, and my turn is coming up soon. I'm still tweaking with the ideas at the moment, but I'm looking forward to it. We're all trying to figure out how to screw each other over and take over the multiverse. So I'm just trying to keep the multiverse intact and influence it subtly.
It's DM versus DM rather than player versus player.
Kind of, yeah. But in the sense, I'm just trying to make sure that the whole family, the whole Olympian family, doesn't fall apart. One person wants to democratize the multiverse, and the other one wants to undo the whole thing. So,
good luck.
So Tuesday.
Yeah, pretty much. And I just want to do one quick shout out for my avatar, my friend Sketchbro, whom you've played with. Actually did what he called the Hibernian Death Knight, and I love it very much, and it's very, very good. So Sketchbro, if you're listening, man, shout out to you.
That was Sketchbro did your new avatar.
Yep, he on Aaron's server, he did some of the more notorious members. He did them all. I think he did one for Shield, Lynchpin, Prince of Nothing. He did a lot of people. I think he did Aaron as well. So
cool.
Yeah, I made a demand that I was the Death Knight, and he fulfilled it, and I love it.
And Saxius.
It's just been one game this week, my 2nd edition, and they are paranoid. The Drow are moving into the lands below them. A major NPC tried to do some scrying because they found out one of the players had a dispel dream cast upon them. I was plagued by nightmares. That NPC got a horrific seizure when it turned out that it was leading her mind back to a lich, who then decided to do a little bit of prodding back into her mind. So the players are deciding that they need stronger allies. So there's a discussion of who do we go to. They know there's a bronze dragon that is somewhere in the region, and they know exactly where to find storm giants. They're just debating of who are they going to try and reach out to make an ally with. And some of the players are realizing what the domain level actually means. So that means they are making full use of their followers and trying to get them to do background stuff. While
I would say a bronze dragon be more reliable than storm giants.
It depends though, because I have redone giants altogether.
Oh, right.
That they are not your typical by the monsters manual. So the giants are different, very different. So I've told the players, what do you know if you know the monsters manual inside out? The core stuff is there, but I have done aesthetic changes and major background changes. So
yeah, I did something similar with the hill giants in my game.
It's I've got one player who knows pretty much all the monsters and all that. I'm going I don't mind that you know it, but I have ultimate say at the end of the day, and that's non-negotiable. It's wouldn't even argue. So that's my That's my starting group. Paranoids, and one of them is trying to make use of his 14 thief followers to like divvy them out and just like min-max how much he can get out of it. So I'm going to be going through and making a system to sort of incorporate how many followers versus how many things they can do, so that they don't start bombarding me with, here's a list of 20 things I want done. It's like, no, that's me. That's what I would do to a DM.
Right. I've never DM'd for you. You've only DM'd for me so far, so I haven't experienced you as a player yet.
If you give me power as a player, I will drive you up the wall. Real story here. I went through 20 years of stock market data to prove a point in a Vampire the Masquerade game, where I threw a graph and a PowerPoint at the DM, going, "Here's my argument. You can read through it. Let me know when you're ready."
I would just say to you, Saxius, if you ever pulled that on me, I nearly swore. If you ever pulled that on me, I'd be like, yeah, I don't care. What I say goes, as is the right and privilege of every dungeon master.
That's fine.
To just say
I
no,
still do it.
no. I mean, like, no. If I say no, you can't do it, then you ain't doing nothing, man.
That's fine, but I will do all the prep work right leading up until.
And that's fine. That is perfectly fine.
I will.
You can't stop it from doing it. You can just stop it from having any effect.
Exactly, and that's what this DM.
Well, I mean, there is.
What?
You might say Saxius would do it religiously, which brings us to our topic.
It does.
Yeah,
Quickly,
exactly.
before we go into that, I'm just going to shill for Elfbait's channel. Elfbait has got his. He has resurrected his channel, and he's going to be doing a live stream on
round of applause
Sunday. Mage's Musings has some videos to make, and I believe there's at least one in progress at the moment, so we'll look forward to that. Check out Mage's Musings channel as well. I do know Joe the lawyer, who's in chat and has given me $1.99 so far. Excellent. He has a channel, and Biggest Geekers has a podcast and a website where you can buy all manner of role-playing game goodies. So I'm just continuing doing my
channel
shout-outs.
too, I think.
I will also say we forgot the great.
Yeah, he's got a channel as well. Of course, I'm subscribed to it.
You're shilling all these channels, but you forgot to shill the most important channel of all. Everyone, smash that like button for Geek. Get that algorithm up, boys.
Go on, then. Go on, then. Get the algorithm.
So we can write. So we can write.
Bell.
Yeah, because we have to write the great injustice done to Geek and his channel and his honor.
That way, Geek doesn't have to say it too, because it always
we have
feels
to recover that 50
that.
pence he got demonetized.
Exactly.
I lost all of about 50 pence to those.
That is 50 pence stolen out of your wallet, Geek. It is a crime.
I would like to say I paid the reparations for that. Thank you very much.
He did indeed. Saxius did indeed.
Yeah. He did his 20 lashes and his 100 Hail Marys, and he is forgiven. And that brings us back to our topping point: Clerics.
Clerics and Druids. That is the topic for tonight. It's the third of our, I wouldn't say deep dives, because we don't go that deeply, but
our pontifications, if you will.
Again, pontification. Pontiff. Again, on topic. Hello, everyone who's joined chat as well. Omenal's lurking in chat.
Sweet.
Okay, so Clerics and Druids. The Cleric, one of the original 3 classes from OD&D. Described in the original books as being a bit of a hybrid between the fighting man and the magic user. Yeah, capable of wearing any armor, even back then, no edged weapons, and a few spells. Probably the original sort of almost a Swiss Army knife class of the day back then, where you had out-and-out fighters and out-and-out magic users. And, of course, we all know where they came from, don't we? Checking a little bit of D&D history. Hello, Crafting.
Van Helsing. Van Helsing.
Well, Van Helsing's
a big turn the undead.
Turning the undead.
But it's also the tapestry. I think it was. The one about the club. Yeah, the pacifism. Yeah, I know the one. I don't remember what it's called, but I know the one you're on about.
Yeah, there's some sort of argument over exactly who it was supposed to be based on, but the idea, certainly Bishop Odo from Odo, however you want to pronounce his name, on the Bear Tapestry was shown wielding a blunt weapon, and Gygax used that image to help create the cleric class, and
It's a bit of a
non-
misinterpretation on his part, considering clubs are shown all over Norman officers and stuff. throughout the time.
Yeah. And Knights Templars, which were another big influence on them, were known for using the sword, but
Still, though, we get our inspiration where we do.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. I mean, even like look at this, like in Basic, I believe they got slings, and that's from David and Goliath. We get the stick to snakes, which is Moses. He pulled from whatever he knows.
Yep.
Yes,
actually, but an interesting thing about the cleric, I actually was watching Alexander. I don't remember the channel's name. It's about deep dive into the 3 little brown booklets. It's specifically the cleric. The way it's written, it actually implies that clerics can use any weapons. They just can't use edged magic weapons in the original books. So they can use edged weapons, just not magical ones. Yes.
I mean, I've not got the original books, but if anyone's got them, would like to.
Yeah, he showed it. He showed it in the video. I saw it. Yeah, and I think I trudged through because I have the PDFs of them from drive-through.
It does make sense because I remember one of the rulings were that in order for you to do the healing, you had to do an attack to the person, meaning that more often than not, the clerics would have to get out their knives and daggers to do the healing, to roll that, because there was a touch-based thing, which was classified as attack.
Really? That I did not know.
That's off the top of my head. I could be wrong here, but OD&D is not my specialty.
Yeah. Like I'm going through the OD&D stuff because it's between AD&D and OD&D. I prefer OD&D. But yeah, no, it's just kind of fascinating when I saw that ruling. But slight tangent. We'll continue on.
All right, so the next iteration of the cleric was the AD&D cleric, I believe. Oh no, hang on. Holmes Basic came out next.
Basic.
I know nothing about Holmes Basic. Does anyone know what the cleric was like in Holmes Basic?
I only know Moldvay Basic, and even then, only fleeting.
Only vaguely. Yeah, like I know. That was a bit before my entry into the game.
I'll come to Moldvay Basic then in a bit, but the AD&D cleric, it basically doubled down on the no spiky weapons and armor. They were again probably your second fighters after the fighting class and subclasses. They were capable. They now had a D8 for hit points. They could wear any armor, so they get start. They would have. I mean, the only real limitation to begin with in terms of armor was they didn't get as much money as a fighter, and they were pretty much expected to buy a holy symbol.
They did also lose their sling, their proficiency with slings, which is unfortunate.
Well, yeah, they didn't have. Yeah, originally in AD&D First Edition, the only missile weapon that a cleric had would be a thrown hammer. That was
or flasks, but that's about it.
Or oil flasks, and that would
and holy water, but that's about it.
And holy water was expensive. But then Unearthed Arcana changed that. The staff sling became a cleric weapon then.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
But again, they were quite powerful in terms of a class. And I found especially at low levels because skeletons and zombies were extremely common, and having a cleric be able to force them away immediately, right at the start, was powerful. They had a decent attack table. They had good saving throws. Their high wisdom boosted that saving throw help. Their weapons, while a little bit limited, often had a +1 damage on whatever dice was being used. So they didn't have a minimum damage of 1 on a lot of their weapons. There was always the argument we found about whether the footman's mace would be a one-handed or a two-handed weapon. Now, that was clarified in second edition that it should have been a two-handed weapon from the start, in my opinion.
What should have been? Sorry, you cut out there.
The footman's mace and the footman's flail.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Simply because of the weight, the encumbrance of the weapons. I always believe they should have been a two-handed weapon. But how many people played with them as two-handed weapons? Not very many.
Flail, yes. Mace, no.
I mean,
in my game,
technically, historically, the Morning Star is two-handed, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's debatable whether the Morning Star was like were more than just like replicas or like ceremonial weapons. So, basically like display pieces.
If you're talking about the ball and chain, that's not a Morning Star.
No.
I always confuse the two. My apologies.
You and everybody else.
Yeah.
That's
the Morning Star. The Morning Star flail.
A clerik couldn't use a Morning Star. Cleric could
because it spikes. Yeah,
even though another name for it is the Holy Water Sprinkler.
Holy Walter the Sprinkler. Hey.
That's my character. Or the Godundak, which was a spiked club, basically.
The Good Dog is weird. The Good Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, bang.
It's a anti-knight weapon made for peasant footmen.
Yes.
Knock them off their horse with a big clubby bit and then skewer them with the spiky bit.
Yeah, just stab through the plating with the spiky bit. Yeah.
Indeed.
That's great.
Yeah,
Not a cleric weapon either.
The AD&D cleric was definitely a force to be reckoned with. I often tell new players that treat this as sort of an advanced class because you need to know a little bit about everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
like my for any it's unlikely, but anyone who's new to the game, and playing it, my suggestion to you, 9 times out of 10, and I'm telling you this, when you first get magic as a cleric, Cure Light Wounds at first level or second level is a trap. Go for the light spell. Go for the light spell.
I'm going to come to that in a minute, DK. Don't you worry. But Ian has mentioned here spell bonus and extra spells for wisdom, a real bonus for clerics in AD&D. Yes.
Yep.
If you followed the Gygax's suggestions of having a couple of decent stats, then a cleric would have bonus spells, and you could be starting off first level with 3 first level spells. So it would frustrate me when, and Jean's mentioned this, it would frustrate me when you see a cleric with Cure Light Wounds memorized 3 times, because that is, I'm a believer in prevention is better than the cure. If you've got 3 first level spells, yes, have a Cure Light Wounds in there, but do not have more than 1. Have a bless or a protection from evil or a light, because those
is bless a
spells,
first or second level? I thought it was second.
It's first.
Second in basic.
Right. Oh, okay. Thank you.
And those spells are going to boost your fighters. Light spell will blind the enemy so the fighters can go in and mash them. The protection from evil and bless spells will make your fighters better in combat.
And here's the other thing. Light also has the dual function of if the torches get knocked out, because like in Swords and Wizardry, if you get surprised, you have a 1 in 4 chance of dropping whatever's in your hand.
Spells
so you can
drop your torch. Bite your tongue.
I know, right? Yeah. Oh, heaven forfend that we use spells for anything other than combat. Derp.
And for me, the cleric as well got a couple of very decent spells when they got to 3rd level in the form of Spiritual Hammer and Silence 15-foot Radius and Hold Person. These came in when the cleric was just 3rd level. Again, if you've got a wisdom spell bonus, you're going to get at 3rd level multiple 2nd level spells if you've got a high enough wisdom. So a low level cleric is a very, very potent character party member.
They absolutely are. And to your point,
they're MVPs.
Watching players memorize Cure Light Wounds and nothing but, it's like, yes, I agree with your point, but all new players have to go through that learning process where they figure out, I should diversify.
Yes.
Yeah, I've had a few players load up on Cure Light Wounds and then smack themselves. I should have taken light, or I should have taken, of course, purified food, because our food just went bad. Bloody mice got into the pack.
Oh god.
There's one AD&D module, Beyond the Crystal Cave, where just to gain entrance to the initial adventuring area, the cleric has to learn the reverse of create water.
So destroy water, basically.
Destroy water, yeah, and that's what gains them access to the garden.
So he's like Moses parting the Red Sea, basically.
Yeah,
No, that would be part water. That's a different spell.
But it works effectively in that way. It works effectively and that's how they gain entrance to the garden. But they've got to work out that puzzle, and I've just given it away for anybody who wants to play that adventure.
Yeah,
Omen.
Omen does point out that turn the undead makes them even more powerful. There's a reason why. But they get without stat adjustments, they get turn undead before they get magic. They're not just for balance purposes, because turning the undead is their bread and butter. It's the reason you play the class. It's not. They're not the misconception that modern players say the cleric is the heal bot. That is never what they were about.
Never should have been.
They're undead. They're undead fighters. That was their niche.
Yeah, but
my most downvoted post on Reddit was when I popped in and said a cleric is much more than a healer.
Yeah,
Cure Light Wounds Cure Light Wounds is a trap. Learn other spells. Prevention is better than cure, and deal with undead. That clerics are very effective at doing that sort of thing, and loads of people on Reddit dived in and went, no, clerics are there as healers. No.
Oh, I've seen people get offended at the notion that you take a cleric that uses utilities and doesn't load up on healing spells.
Yeah. Hey, the beginning of the great meltdown in my campaign was the guy wanting to make a cleric who didn't heal.
I just want to say, Saxius, you were gonna say something?
Yeah.
No, move on. Let's move on.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
He's cracking the whip on himself. Huh?
Yeah.
All right. No, but the funny thing is, though, is that was this a 1E Reddit group or a 5E? Because in the 5E thing that I've seen, they constantly go on about how the cleric isn't. It's right. Okay. There it is.
First and second edition.
Right. That would explain it.
Well, and in 5E, it's because with domains. Well, we'll get onto that. Domains,
we'll get it.
Domains very much change the landscape of the cleric, but we'll discuss that when we get to the edition.
Silence 15-foot radius is a great spell. Oh, if you've got a thief in the party, silence 15-foot radius.
Yeah. If you get if you're
but if you're a cleric, it shuts down enemy spellcasters real quick.
Yeah, I was just about to say, that cleric who is a frontline fighter gets right up on the evil spellcaster and casts that. What's he gonna do? None of his spells work. His reason for being is destroyed, and the cleric is just beating him over the head with his glowing magic beating stick.
He'll probably have some, but it greatly limits what he can do.
I will say though, there was a little bit of balance put in there because the cleric spell casting time was was
slower.
Were they were going to be casting their spells at the end of the round. So if a cleric was casting,
that's because they have to pray.
Gygax had to nerf them somehow.
Please, God, let me shut this guy up so everybody else can hammer him with impunity and not have to worry about it. Okay, thank you. I'll be nice. I'll be there on church and on Thursday.
I'll donate. I'll say my Hail Marys and I'll donate to the orphanages, whatever. Just make sure this guy can't cast Fireball anymore.
Cast now? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Great, you can't cast Fireball anymore. Woohoo!
So at the same time as AD&D had that version of the cleric, we had the basic D&D cleric, which was much weaker, apart from the turning. Being able to turn a bunch of skeletons on a roll of 7 on 2d6 was an absolute lifesaver for a first level party.
Oh, it was, yeah. Yeah.
But they, of course, the clerics in basic D&D at first level, they were limited to weapons that would do d6 damage.
They had d6 health.
They got d6 health, and they had no spells at first level. And then they got one spell at second level.
They're a long-term investment, like the wizard.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And they can also, that's the thing, they can mix it up in melee, and they can use magic. That was the thing. They were a nice midway between the two. Like, if they ran out of magic, they could mix it up and help the fighter, or if the wizard needed more protection, they would start healing them.
It definitely creates kind of a very different view of the cleric in BX, because at that point you kind of imagine him as sort of the Friar Tuck type of guy at first, You know, he doesn't even have holy power except for the turning. You know, he's the novitiate. Yeah.
I never viewed them as like Friar Tuck types. I've always viewed them as like Knights Templars. I've always seen them as warrior monks.
Well, what I'm saying is in BX, he kind of comes across that way with no spells and very limited weapon selection and stuff like that. So
they had slightly better saving throws than fighters, but as Omen Owl and Ian are saying, they were nearly fighters at first level. But they're low experience.
Yeah, low experience. Yeah, like
they advanced quickly.
Only the thief advanced faster than them, I think, in BX, or was it the halfling? I think it's actually the halfling.
Halfling is the same as a fighter, 2000.
Oh, really? Ooh, that's brutal.
Yeah, and the halfling level caps real quick too.
At 8.
Yeah, at like 8. Yeah. Be in standard. If your rules as written, it's like 8th level. So.
General Nut knows those of us who started with Ekme will always see the cleric as Alina.
Not Alina.
Yes.
Poor Alina.
Yeah. There's actually a module that Labyrinth Lord did called Saint Alina. I think it's Shrine of Saint Alina.
Yeah.
It's obvious reference, and I'm hoping I'm going to run it at some point.
Doesn't she show up in a module in an actual Beckme module later on?
No.
Play?
Don't know.
I think it's actually in the box.
That's because she's in the.
It's Bargle. Is it Bargle? Did she kill by Bargle or something?
It's Bargle's magic missile that kills her.
Yeah,
of course. It's always the wizard. It's always the wizard who kills the virtuous cleric. God.
Doesn't I know a higher level Bargle shows up.
Maybe that's what I'm confusing.
Oh yeah. It's Gazetteer 1. I think General Nut saying it's Gazetteer 1.
I think Bargle shows up again in X10, Red Arrow, Black Shield. I think it is.
This story was meant to demonstrate to new players that you should not get too attached to your characters because they can die during a game, and the game is dangerous. Yeah, and that just basically turned it into it taught us a valuable lesson that
Brian's right.
We will avenge anyone that you like, any resource you take from us.
Yeah.
You know. It's like a magic item. We don't care why he took the paladin's Vorpal Holy Avenger. We're gonna cut his goddamn head off.
I think though, what the other thing that it demonstrates and in a good way is that players do develop attachments to NPCs, and that you do get connected to the world, and it doesn't take a lot for that to happen. Everybody's reaction to the death of Alina is kind of shows that it doesn't take a lot. You don't have to have gigantic story. I guess this is cautionary maybe for a lot of those heavy story-based DMs of the modern age. You don't have to invest a crap ton of time to get somebody attached to an NPC.
They just got to be nice.
She just has to be good looking. She has to be nice, and she has to heal you.
Be useful.
Not even that.
Yeah, or she has to be.
I need to kind of take it up in a real quick tangent before Sax just kills me. Even in my current game, the rest of my whole party is like sympathizing with a bunch of hill giants over a dead mate. They're like, we'll accompany you and help you bring him home, and they're hill giants.
Even I'm like, a player when I played in Aaron's game, like he dominated an NPC, made him put on a cursed plate. He turned into a half minotaur, half man monstrosity, and when he couldn't control him anymore, he let him into the wild. And I was like, no, I'm gonna take him in so my brethren don't kill him, or he goes on a rampage, and I'll treat him as a Quasimodo character, and I'll look after him, and I'll give nice little mitts, and he'll ring the bell, and it'll be fine. It'll be great. And it was fun. I loved doing it, and I invested money in him, and I didn't care.
Yeah.
I must be an absolute sociopath compared to the rest of you.
Yeah, we knew that already.
Yeah, dude, you're lawful evil, and you do taxes for a living. What did you think?
Not taxes, just customs. Difference.
Same. Oh yeah. Customs for free trade, or customs. Taxes for free trade. Big difference.
So we've gone through OD&D, we've gone through AD&D, we've gone through basic, and then in came second edition.
There we go.
Now exactly joining. Now, I don't know if this is going to be considered to be treasonous by a lot of people who watch, but I love what second edition did with the cleric class. You could have the basic cleric, but then it basically gave you this free reign to construct clerics of different gods with different fields of expertise, different
the domain, or not domains,
domains,
the
spheres.
Spheres.
Spheres. That was it. Yeah,
and I'm
not a
about the
huge.
kits here. I'm not on about the kits, Omen. I think the complete Cleric's Handbook was a waste of time. You didn't need that. All you needed was to have a look at the way that the speciality priests were put together. For example, in the I checked out the Forgotten Realms book to see how they put the speciality priests together.
Hungar with his $5 saying nerds. Thank you, Hungar.
Oh, here we go
Hungar.
again.
Can we get back up to ugly dorks? That's
All
the
right.
challenge.
We are now nerds until somebody outbids Hungar.
We are now.
But no, I have to agree with you, Geek, there. I think the cleric is one of those few classes that really came into its own in second edition.
Yes.
Split into clerics and priests. The idea of having those specialized priests, and then also that often came with different weapon selection too, which really addressed some of the complaints, from players early on, like, well, how come my cleric can't do this in such and such religion, or I'm a cleric of an agricultural god. Why can't I use a scythe or a pitchfork or whatever?
When I did my own pantheon for my homebrew game, I created a specialist priest for each of the gods.
Oh yeah,
and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I mean, I was like, okay, that's a warrior god, so I'm going to give them more weapons. But they're a warrior god, so they're going to be more. They're going to be limited in the spell choices, and I might take away, for example, turning undead to compensate for the fact that they can now use more weapons.
Yeah.
Or a god of the weather, for example, might not want to wear metallic armor because of lightning, but you might let them use, for example, more sort
Elven chain,
rubber armor,
but a wider range of spells, some more devastating spells, and again, you might allow them things like morning stars, for example, the holy water sprinkler, that sort of thing as weapons for a god of weather, a god of agriculture. Yes, you've already said a sickle, a scythe.
You could probably justify trident by saying it's a pitchfork.
Yeah.
I go on.
I enjoyed putting all those together. I mean, I thought that was interesting. Okay, I might have not got the balances completely right. It didn't matter, but it created a nice theme to each one and made them feel more involved with the world.
All right, go on.
I would. The point that I was going to drive at, mechanically speaking, I don't know the mechanics of second edition too well. But from what I know of how I'm of the exact opposite vein, Geek, I actually, from a world building perspective, I don't like the fact that the clerics can specialize with one god. I don't like it. I think that the clerics, because if there are multiple gods, the clerics should worship them all.
I don't know.
No, that's
classic
not
mythology is full of priests of such and
I
such.
would like to weigh in on this
temples
one.
to such and such.
For some clerics, it's not the fact that you are worshipping all the gods. For some of the clerics, which is what second edition went into, is that they have got certain limitations, like a specialty wizard. You've got certain stat requirements for you to become a dedicated or a chosen cleric of said god. But that would then mean that you had the stats of this god. You, the player, you did not get to decide that. There was a barrier.
Okay, all right.
There was a straight up barrier for the actual mechanical impact of you being this one, and you would get some awesome abilities. Like I'm going to use the Forgotten Realms, where Talos, one of my players, would absolutely die. He loved the fact he could beat Talos, and it was down to the fact that his turn undead was significantly weaker, but one of the abilities that he got was that he could call forth lightning whenever it was, close to a storm, or if there was enough clouds in the sky.
Okay, so this is like basically you can't just decide to be a paladin. You need specific stats in order to be the right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I misunderstood. Right.
Equally so, it's down for what you want in the world. So let's go back to the spheres. By the very definition of the cleric in the core, 75% of the spheres will be given to you pronto. That's it. You get all of them. You're assuming to be worshipping whatever god you need to. Here and there, you turn to your attention as you need. But what it allows you mechanically, and what I've done in my second edition, is that I then say these gods, because you choose, and you could be a normal cleric, and you've then chosen to focus on one specific god, you then get access to these domains. These spells is what this god can grant you if you pray to them.
Right. I think it's.
Go on.
I think it's just my point was it's just the fact that since the way traditional D&D works is so polytheistic, it just doesn't make sense to me that now clerics, because it's treating the clerics as the priestly class rather than the devotional holy men class that they originally were supposed to be.
The class that we're talking about was literally called a priest.
Yeah.
So in second edition, you have the cleric, which is the old school cleric, the generalist, and then you had specialist priests, and that very much carries over from classic antiquity, even if you go down to that for
but the point I'm driving at is it's not like a priest of Apollo only worshipped Apollo. He gave supplication to all the Greek gods. He just specialized in Apollo.
But he also existed in the real world and was a real mechanical part of society. In a fantasy interpretation, an iteration is what you're getting, because the when you read the Iliad and we read about the girl being taken from the temple of Apollo, she's the priestess of Apollo and all of that. We don't hear and he took the priestess of Apollo, who also happened to worship all the other gods. No, we hear.
That's because it would have been assumed that the guy would have worshipped all the gods anyway.
Or is
we don't need to.
No, it's not worship, but you certainly acknowledge them.
But this is also the world that you want to make at the end of the day, because. The second edition does not set down anything where it goes like you have to worship all of them. You don't have to, and that's why you've got the spheres. You can go, or at least again, this is what I did mine, where you focus on one god, you get access to these spells, and that's why most players just go, well, I'm just going to pick one god and make it easier for myself, because saying I'm going to worship all of them, well, trust me, I will get that on. I will ride you hard and make sure you tell me exactly which god you're praying to, that you're going to their temples, you are doing the proper things. And the players just unanimously just decide, no, I don't want to do this, because Oscar will follow up on this, and I will, because I don't want to deal with players just going, oh, I worship them all, I'll just get everything.
You could have like with the base mage, though, you could have the base cleric where you didn't specialize in anything. That was still an option in the game. So it gave the DM the tools to create these things in the game. Didn't say you had to.
And the players have got so much more versatility in what they can create, because you're not limited to, here I am with my stick, with my shield, and now I'm going to go out and do this. No, you can be so much more creative about what you make. Anywhere from go on, Elf.
No, I was going to say it's a good example of taking a very relatively grounded, mundane concept from the real world and dialing it up to make it into a fantasy concept. Too many religions out there have dedicated temples to such and such, and dedicated priests to such and such. I get that you're saying that they were generalists, but clearly there was a big enough distinction in Greek society, for example, to make that distinction. There was enough of a difference to where because I'm not going to go into the argument here with it. It's just that if you're going to have distinctions, it gives you enough room in fantasy to build on those distinctions.
All right.
And that is what they did. Enough. Because now you could have I'm the priest of Crom, or I'm the priest of Odin, or I'm the priest of the monkey god, whatever.
Sun Wukong. Yeah.
Well, depends on which country's monkey god, dude.
That's fair.
Monkeys in other worlds and other countries, but my point is that it builds off that, just like everything else in fantasy. It's an extrapolation of those real world, affectations. So.
Yeah, we've got a grognard in here by the name of L, and I'm saying
Yes, we know
L by
We know.
the sheer fact that in Greyhawk the setting has more than one god means
Yeah.
that it's polytheistic. That's literally, poly means many, and theo means religion or God. So therefore, ipso facto, it's many gods. Therefore, it is polytheistic.
What he's saying there, though, is basically he is right in saying that the basic books, the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, didn't have specific gods.
Oh yeah, obviously, because it
didn't.
gave reference to
and it wasn't
left
until
the
the
DM,
Legends and Lore book came out, which was the replacement for Deities and Demigods, if I recall, right? For second edition, if I'm remembering the title correctly. Then you had the write-ups for the various pantheons and what their spheres were and what weapons they could use.
I will say, granted, you didn't have to run AD&D with Greyhawk, but Gygax created AD&D with the assumption of Greyhawk. He ran AD&D with Greyhawk. Yeah. So I'm going to assume that if that was his intent, AD&D is married to Greyhawk implicitly.
Oh yeah,
you don't have to.
All right, before we get off,
one of the first things I got for AD&D was the Greyhawk box set, and that was my default. I'd use St. Cuthbert, and I'd use.
And they got plenty of coverage in Dragon. All the fact they had a long-running series of articles of the gods of the Flenes and the Saloon and all of that stuff.
Yes, the old and all
Dexter and
Hexter,
yeah. One frustration I had, going back to Geek's comment about what second ed brought to it, because I like the variety as well, but the core books were frustratingly light on advice on how to evenly spread out the spheres of power because they were unequal in terms of what they offered.
Oh yeah, they were, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it was built with balance in mind. I mean, off the top of my head, if I remember correctly,
it was flavor.
It was flavor, but it goes by, a normal priest would have access to 75% of the what's it called, the spells. The ones they really wouldn't have a big impact into would be animals, plants, anything to do with nature, because that's what's meant to be for the druids. But in terms of what should they have access to? Well, I mean, I've had gods where they don't have access to the healing domain or the healing sphere, and then that's there you go. They've got focuses elsewhere.
I agree. That's fine. But the problem was the books didn't give you any mechanical guidance. I know this frustrated me as a kid when getting into it. It's like, okay, but how do I tell the clerics what spells they're allowed to have, right? Because there was no default template.
No,
you had to do that. Where you get to sit down and do that. Where there was a lot of work to figure out what spell spheres would go with which cleric and which faith.
I might have simplified it because I went, right, what are the major spheres? What are the minor spheres that a god will have access to? And I wouldn't even be giving it out, in a mathematically fair sense. But I would basically go like, okay, I will give out, let's say, between 2 to 4 major spheres that this god will grant you access to. And then you can have access to the spells going all the way up to 6th or 7th level. And then all the minor ones will stop at level 3. For the spells you can cast, and then from there I can then just tally out and go like bam, 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 bam. Here's who's got access for what, and surprise, surprise, I do that via a spreadsheet. Just god spheres, just tally it up, and then you can have a total at the very end to just sort of see, how many spheres are they having for influence, and what kind of power level are you dealing with? Oh, good grief!
He's outbidding himself.
Thanks, Hungar.
Cheers, Hungar. Hungar is back in hospital, unfortunately.
Hungar.
So I
get well soon, bro.
I hope we're making your stay in hospital a little more pleasant, Hungar. So chin up, fella. And what I do want to know, Hungar, let me know in chat. Are you going to do the same to your beard as your brother did to his?
He already shaved a little bit. Last time I saw him on a stream, he trimmed it.
Had he trimmed it?
Yeah, it wasn't gone. He still had a beard, but it wasn't like James, who was
James
just completely baby-faced.
Yeah, completely.
You are really starting to piss me off.
All right,
L is L. Yeah, even I've dueled with L a few times, but
Everyone.
Yeah,
duels with L from time.
I feel whenever L tries to argue with me, I'm like bashing my head against a brick wall.
But you know
So-
what else has L in it? The word cleric. Let's continue.
Yes.
Yes.
And one change
We're gonna
they made,
smite evil in the name of the Lord. There you go.
I mean, a druid in second edition was little more than a
Specialist cleric.
specialist
Yeah.
cleric. Yes.
Hey, you want to be a nature? You want to be an agricultural cleric? Play a goddamn druid. There you go. You can get your sides. You can get your sides.
I cannot think of a class that is more hated whenever I have players. Druids are just hated whenever I run them.
Based.
They are.
Well, we will come to druids after we've been all the way through clerics, because I've got things to say about druids as well.
Oh,
As do I.
But one thing I didn't get about early D&D was the limitation of certain races on being player clerics, PC clerics. I didn't like that because, in my opinion, and I'm going back to AD&D, so I'm bouncing back a little bit here. In my opinion, in a world where gods are known to manifest themselves, and I'm not talking about Dark Sun and whatever, because they were different. In the default D&D game, the gods manifested themselves in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That was expected. It wasn't specified so much in basic D&D, but I think in AD&D more, it was certainly with Greyhawk. It brought the idea of the gods almost walking the world and influencing the world a lot. And every sentient race had their own defined gods, or certainly most of them did. You had gods of lizard men, gods of Kuatoa,
Some of them might
gods of,
share gods, but
gods,
Mhm.
gods of kobolds, gods of ogres, gods of troglodytes, all those sort of things. And it was logical in my mind that every single sentient race could produce at least a shaman of some point, of some sort. And yes, you often got those in the monster manual, details of how the shamans, and Complete Book of Humanoids had that sort of thing in as well. But I had no problems, and I have no problems, for example, with allowing, I know Unearthed Arcana allowed it officially, but dwarven clerics, elven clerics, half orcs could be clerics anyway, half elves and whatever, but even halfling clerics. Wasn't Yondala a goddess of
halflings had a
goddess?
whole pantheon. I mean, through the
Yeah.
pages of Dragon, every fantasy race had an entire pantheon,
Yeah.
or all the PC
Well,
races, and then the orcs, and where they even fleshed out their pantheon. So we scrapped we scrapped that early on in AD&D too. I mean, everybody could be a cleric because it just made sense.
I scrapped it as soon as I got hold of Unearthed Arcana, basically. But
Question,
until then,
could half-elves-
I ran by the rules until then.
Could elves be clerics?
Not
In
initially.
first edition, no.
Not
Only
initially.
half
Yeah, because I'm just saying. Yeah, I was saying to Omanal that he said that elves could be magic user cleric fighters. And I'm like, that's
Then
half elves. Half elves
Unearthed Arcana.
could. Yeah, Unearthed Arcana. Yeah, but I was assuming we were just talking about the true books, not
core,
the.
yeah.
Well, no, I mean,
Yeah.
Unearthed Arcana was trying to modernize D&D with some of the thoughts and arguments like Geek and I had that occurred early on. I mean, it's just like
I would say it
so
makes
just reading from the second edition. A character elf can be a cleric, fighter, mage, thief, or ranger. So that's from second edition.
I will.
We
I
are now
will
dweebs,
say-
fellas. We are now dweebs.
I will say with the whole thing of you could argue right now, like dwarves kind of undermine this because NPC dwarves can be they can be clerics, but apart from that, we'll just ignore it because that's an optional rule. Let's just say the only races that can be this are humans, right? And you can tie this back into because as besides the whole balance issue, I'm just taking that. I'm looking at this from an in-universe perspective. Since things like elves can't be raised from the dead, that implies they don't have a soul, which means they're not tied to the spiritual realm. Humans, on the other hand, do have souls because they can be brought back from the dead. Since half-elves are implied to be half-humans, as are half-orcs, you could say that because they are half-human, they are endowed with the divine spark of a soul that humans have, and that's why they can be clerics, if only to a limited capacity.
Can we just pause there? Where is this coming from?
This is just this is just me trying to extrapolate it.
He's theory
Yeah.
crafting.
I'm not saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna shoot that down straight away with halflings and gnomes. Both.
I thought they could only be.
No, they
Oh,
be
can
raised from the
they?
dead. Yes.
I didn't know that. Okay, then I retract my statement. Never mind.
Right. Anyway, so second edition added in a lot of the kits.
Okay, undermine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I kind of walked into that one, Al. I kind of walked right into that one.
I said I don't think the kit book was necessary for the cleric class. I think there was enough flavor in all the world books, the various setting books, to enable a DM to add whatever. The cleric to me was a class that had flavor anyway. I'm not a fan of the kit book for clerics. I don't think it's needed. This is where we annoy everybody in chat by moving into the realms of 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition clerics. We have to in order to go.
Oh man, that is so mean to Saxius. He does have a soul.
No, that's sold. I have a mortgage.
No, okay, fine, that's fine. You had a soul. I, on the other hand, I've made peace with the fact that I don't.
Get back on track. 3rd edition. 3rd edition was awesome.
How dare you, L? I would never insult D&D by comparing it to anime. That is. Go on.
Saxius has just said something nice about 3rd edition. Do I have to mute him?
Oh, please, yes, do. Yes.
Take it to the chat.
Before you make your point there, Saxius, I'm just going to say I disagree. 3rd edition sucks, but you may continue.
So, I mean, 3rd edition really to embrace the whole thing of, you can just be the cleric, and then you've got the various gods having a direct impact with the domains that you are going to be given from there, immediately granting you additional spells to sort of impact that, the god now had a very big impact, and it brought a lot of focus towards, you, the cleric, needing to really work for that, additional spell. You get to have more influence, you get to have more power, and it also gives the DM a wonderful stick to sort of go like, well, have you prayed today? Have you converted people? Have you gone out and been a cleric? Have you done your duties? That was awesome. And I also like the fact that they included some of the level 0 spells, where there were more cantrip-like abilities that a cleric could do, and it gave more magic to a high fantasy game.
The only class I've ever played in 3rd edition was a cleric, and I'm sorry, it was abysmal, because I created the character for flavor, didn't think about theory crafting and optimization, and just tried to create my Dragonlance world cleric who was, I can't remember the name of the goddess, one of the nice goddesses in Dragonlance. I can't remember her name, and he was a very pleasant, helpful soul, and he was just, when it came to 3rd edition rules, he was pathetic. He was absolutely pathetic, because I didn't think about optimization, and that's for me the problem with 3rd edition.
That's great. Yeah, General Nut, Saxius is welcome to bring up games other than D&D.
It's clerics.
Well, I mean, we've already talked about 2nd edition, General Nut, so that ship has already sailed.
No, 2nd edition was fine. 2nd edition was AD&D still.
It wasn't Gygaxian though, and that's kind of the cutoff for me.
It wasn't Gygaxian, but there was enough in there that it was fully compatible with earlier versions.
I know. I'm just being mean.
Right. Going back to 3rd edition and its clerics. Yes, we have talked ad nauseum and to death what we like and what we dislike about 3rd edition. Now, focusing back on the clerics, there was a massive expanse upon spells, and they took away the whole, what spheres and what have you, and brought itself back to a more focus of, here is a long list of spells that you have got access to. And as to again the limitations of how many you can cast, it meant that the player had to put in some legwork and read to know what they would have to prepare. Anywhere from the 0 levels all the way up. Mechanically speaking, there was a lot more. Once you put a spotlight upon skills, as we've discussed, and a lot of those were signed over for the clerics to sort of, again, take more of a center stage along with the paladins and the bards for being the face-oriented characters, especially with their persuade skills. But that's the 3rd edition and its orientation to what it wanted as a system to be. So they redefined clerics on that end. The role-playing was backed up by a numerical system to reflect, if you have got a charismatic character, mechanically speaking, rather than the role-playing side. So yeah, it was. But that's as I'm probably going to be repeating a few times. 3rd edition did major changes, and for those who are more inclined to the AD&D, rule sets, that it was a massive, it's like having being hit by cold water in comparison.
Yes,
but for what it was looking to do, I think it was very much enjoyable up until you got to the high levels, and you went from having 4 pages for your character sheets just to just measly 10 just to account for everything.
Anyway, it's only really Saxus who knows much about 3rd edition. So, does anyone know anything about 4th edition?
I was about to say.
There's an edition of D&D called 4th edition. That's all I know about it.
An edition of D&D. An edition of D&D.
Maybe even the 4th.
I think we can skip it because, to be perfectly honest, no one here in this panel has read it, played it. Yeah. It wasn't my interest, mechanically speaking. I mean, I just picked up the book and looked at it and went, no, thank you. I'm going to skip this one.
I played one session of 4th edition. I can't remember what class I played. It wasn't a cleric.
Well, probably a fighter or a thief. Probably.
They're all the same, aren't they?
They all felt.
Well, I mean, from what I've been told of by the guy on Aaron's server, the guy who really likes 4th edition, is like, you didn't choose so much. Your niche wasn't so much your class as it was like you had like strikers, controllers, leaders, and something else.
It was your rolling.
Yeah. And anyone could be any of the 4 roles. Yeah, it was any of the 4. Any of the classes could be any of the 4 archetypes, we'll say. So
it was a game built during a time where online MMOs were at the rise and a major competitor for tabletop games. It was an attempt to bring in that specific demographic. That's what they focused on. That's what they attempted to do. They were successful in a commercial sense, because look at how many books that 4th edition actually pumped out. Like you cannot deny it was a success in its own right, but it was also something that caused people to sort of go, well, I don't like this.
It causes people to drop out of chat whenever we mention it as well.
The other thing to remember that doesn't come into the dialogue enough, I think, with 4th edition. Yes, it came out at a time when MMOs were big and there was competition. The game itself was designed in the way that it was to make it more playable in an online VTT type of environment. Yeah. Because for 4th edition, they had a VTT that they were building that was never fully realized.
Yeah.
So they were ahead of the curve there.
They were, and I remember the advertisements for that, because it was actually quite interesting to follow. But they wanted like miniatures, action, animations, all of these things, but systematically.
It wasn't just. It wasn't just a combat. It wasn't just a combat game. It was specifically a light skirmish game, which is a lot different than just one-on-one combat. Yeah.
But we're focusing on clerics anyway. We don't know anything about 4th edition clerics, so let's skip on and let's cause to
5th edition.
Cause even 5th edition. Chat by mentioning 5th edition. I don't mind what they did with clerics in 5th edition, because they, as Elf Betas already hinted at earlier, they took away the expectation that the cleric would be a party healer.
Yeah.
Well, the game itself
And-
had more healing options, and that brought
Yeah,
Everyone can heal.
But the domains for clerics in 5th edition carry more weight than just what spells you have. They actually change the full nature of your cleric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have special abilities and stuff. Your whole set of special abilities outside the core class comes from your domain.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
as Michael says, they are powerful. They're a very, very potent class if played.
Oh, they are.
In 5th edition.
They are unironically, I think, in the top 3, if not the most powerful class in 5th edition.
I will not recover. I will not recover from how much damage Course Light wounds it does in comparison to Cure Light wounds. That to me,
just 3d8, 3d8 damage versus 1d8 healing. That fucking makes sense. Said nobody ever.
No, I like
but
it.
They did pull back away from the sort of idea that clerics would heal during combat, and that's one thing I do like about them. In that they're healing. They do a bit of healing, but it's much more effective out of combat. From the way it works, I think they got that right in 5th edition, in my opinion. There's so many other issues that I've got with 5th edition combat, but I think they had they were fine with what they did with the cleric in terms of combat.
It almost makes you wonder if, because cleric's healing ability is so unnecessary in 5e, if they've realized later on in their development, they're like, crap, we got to do something to make this class desirable to
different
other people.
Yeah, they introduced like the forge
clearly
domain.
Healing is not crucial anymore.
No, because virtually everyone can do it. In fact, I think everyone can do it.
I'm injured, guys. I'm just going to go get a night's rest. I'll be back.
Beyond the fact that there's so many other ways to heal for people to heal you, you just have to rest.
Well, no. I mean, like, go for it.
Go on. No, I was just mechanically speaking, the 5th edition made certain changes, which again, when you come from AD&D's background, and if you have a preference for AD&D, it's a very stark contrast, because they wanted to move away from the whole, you've only got 1 HP per day that you will heal, so forth and so forth. They really looked at, no, we are going to be speeding this up, because players want to get back into the action, whether that is the exploration, whether that's engaging, whether that is exploring, or just straight into combat. Give them the abilities to heal that up. But it was also focusing on the whole thing of, we still high fantasy. It makes sense in this world. You are heroes. We're seeing this again in comic movies, where heroes, they will fall down, God, who knows how many flights of stairs. And
I think you also have to look at it demographically, because I agree with you there. It's a change in how the game is being played, as much a change because of the change in how people view fantasy and the prevailing fantasies of the day, which D&D has always been a reflection of the fantasy of its time. The fantasy of 1970 some odd is not the fantasy of today.
That was pulp adventure stuff.
But beyond that, the way people play the game is different, and that is reflected in other parts of the rules. Because you look at AD&D, and they're talking, they're thinking, if you look at the modules, they're looking at like 6 to 8 players and expecting like an 8-hour gaming session minimum. And all of the stuff in 5th edition is written for, with a
3 to 5 for 3 hours.
With a core of 4 for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But that you're spot on, right? And we've seen this new.
And so recovery has to be core to that, to keep the action going.
Absolutely.
Is exactly where I agree with you. It doesn't necessarily make a style of play that's for everybody, but it's currently a style of play that's for the current market.
And that's at the end of the day, it is a business. It's for you to do that. And if you pick up the DMG, and again, it's a major thing, because going back to what Clerics is, you can then turn it around and say, like, well, I would like to bring out the field of clerics of old. And that was one of the major things that I did in my Curse of Strahd campaign. I used the optional rule of healing now. For you to take a short rest from the core rules, you have to do an 8-hour sleep. So you have to spend an entire day just resting for you to then use your hit dice, which suddenly that cleric is going to be front and center. And I like to draw from 3rd edition, where you can substitute out a spell in exchange for a healing spell, assuming you're good aligned, which 5th edition, you are going to be good aligned in my eyes. So that, again, it doesn't penalize the player of 5e by saying, oh, you have to be a healer. It's like, no, you can substitute out a spell. You just have to, you prepare utilitarian, and when you need to heal, when you are in that situation that you have to heal, you sacrifice something, and then that becomes a big choice. It becomes a cost of opportunity, to use economical terms.
My fix, because I've run a fair bit of 5th edition, and my fix to make healing more palatable for me in 5th edition is I use the longer healing rules in terms of recovering hit points, where you need longer rests. I removed all ranged healing effects, so you didn't have
healing
the
word and all that. Yeah.
healing words
Healing
gone, doesn't exist.
Yeah, and the healing spirit as well, because that's an
all
area
those
of
gone,
effect one.
gone.
Yeah,
I don't care about balance. Don't care about balance. Gone. But what I also did is I just to balance that back out again. I did say that a cleric, they would have to expend a spell slot to do this, but if they cast a cure wounds spell out of combat and used ritual level casting time, then the recipient would get advantage on the dice they get for healing.
That's really good.
I often argue that you just spend a minute per. You will get maximum result, but for each hit point that you are healing, that's a minute of you concentrating.
That's a good idea as well. Yeah.
Because I like to do the random monsters and roaming monsters and so on, because I like, again, surprise, I go TikTok to my players.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before we go on, go on, DK.
No, I was saying the way I would handle the way to make the cleric healing more relevant. I don't even necessarily think you have to do get rid of the range spell. I think that's a good idea, but there's another way to do it. I would just say, okay, if your character drops 2-0, right? If they drop 2-0 hit points, they make a death save. If they fail the save, they die. If they survive, if they make the save, they're unconscious but stabilized. If they are healed, right, they are resuscitated but are stunned for the round.
I do that as well.
And any hit while you are conscious and stabilized kills you.
And that's it. I kept the death saves, but I added in exhaustion for 0 hit points. And if during a combat you were brought back to 1 hit point and thus conscious again, I had a round of stun where you could do nothing.
Oh yeah, and I think I said also you get a level of exhaustion as well. Yeah, if you get back up.
The nice thing about 5th edition, if we're gonna talk about it as a whole, is there are lots of tools, and the system is granular enough to where you can pick and pull and plug in.
House rule the hell out of it, and it still works.
And not break it, which is one thing there is something to be said when you're looking back at something like AD&D, that the system is often so opaque that it's really hard to make a homebrew or a house rule with it that is truly deeply informed. You're kind of like, well, this is my best guess, or you do what we always did and just not worry about balance. So it's like, I
don't worry about that. But before we go on the topic of druids, which I want to come on to next, I just I saw Halakar mentioned the Rollmaster books regarding their various.
Sorry, if we could just on the 5e front, there's one thing I wanted to mention that they did that I liked was like in First Ed they had a general spell list that all clerics had access to, and then they had the specific domain spells that were usually on their lists. that cleric can choose. I actually liked that because that's a good way to diversify a bit, but without completely breaking the system and rewriting the system.
Yeah.
There are some of those cleric archetypes that just overdo the magic, in my opinion. But yes, they thematically.
But the concept is great in function.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, thematically, yeah, it's a good idea. And it does make them feel different, mechanically different, which is fine. I mean that harps back to second edition clerics, which they felt mechanically different when you started doing the speciality priests. No problem with that at all.
But it's such a nice little touch. It's just here's a small handful of spells that are outside of the normal range that you have access to.
Yes, like there's the Arcana domain one where you've got a few sort of more
wizard
magic
spells.
users.
Found a homebrew commerce domain that I sent to Saxius. there was a commerce domain. And a travel domain. The travel domain I actually used in my campaign. It was we're talking homebrews now, but that, again, going to that granularity aspect, making up new domains was relatively simple and easy to do, and fair to do, I should say. So the travel domain, that's how I got my patron State of Adventurers, in my campaign. That's his only sphere, is just the travel domain. Is like, if if you're traveling, you wear your little medal to protect you, and he keeps you safe on your travels. But it allows you. I mean, it's really easy to come up with new domains for 5th edition, to where you can really actually have a pretty diverse pantheon if you want. I have one of my pantheons that I wrote up for one of my settings has domains from everything that's in the PHB plus like 6 other homebrew domains, and makes for a really flavorful pantheon.
What's this? The crafting gamer?
Oh, wow.
What the hell?
He's got a new follower.
He became a
Oh, nice.
Hey,
Oh, okay. I've never seen that before.
Thank you. That's fat. I believe that's Fat Gamer in disguise.
Yeah. I will say this is my last response to L. Paladins are more welcome in AD&D because there's more of a literary defense for them than clerics.
No. Should we move on to Druids?
Thank you, Crafting Gamer. I'm just gonna pop this up in here. Thank you, Crafting Gamer. Right, before we go on to Druids, I do want to just quickly bring in, because Halakar's mentioned this in chat, regarding the way healing spells and the spell lists work in the Rollmaster system. Because of course I run MERP, which uses its Rollmaster Lite. It uses the spell lists. Healing's MERP is quite visceral in terms of combat, in that you do have hit points, but also you have certain wounds. Thank you, Ian. You all have certain wounds that can be caused to people. You can cause bones to break. You can cause severe bleeding. You can cause organs to be damaged. You can cause eyes to be shot out and things like that. And there are specific spells in the cleric lists, or animist lists as they call them, that uses a class called an animist, which is a cross between a cleric and a druid. And I was just going to read out some of them. You've got your basic healing one, surface ways, which gives you heal 10, which is 1d10 hit points, frost and burn relief, stun relief, regeneration, which regenerates hit points per round. Then higher levels of frost and burn relief. There's one called Awakening, which removes the effects of a sleep spell, and so on. But the ones that are most interesting are things like bone and muscle ways. The level 1 spell in that, so a level 1 animist with bone and muscle ways, once per day can repair a sprain. Can't heal hit points, can repair a sprain. That is it. The level 2 one is minor. The level 2 one is minor fracture repair. Level 3 one is a muscle repair. Then you've got cartilage, tendon, major fracture, joining, which can reattach limbs. Quite why tooth repair is a higher level than joining, I don't know. Skull repair, and then joint repair. Bloodways has got clotting, cut repair, minor vessel repair. Then further up, you've got another version of joining, blood transfusion, mass clotting. Then organ ways has got nasal repair, minor nerve repair, minor ear repair, minor eye repair, major nerve repair. Again, it's got joining, all the way up to organ repair, which specifically does not affect the brain. So if your brain's been mashed, that doesn't help at all. But these are all separate lists that the cleric has to learn, or the animist has to learn at various points, and gain levels to work their way down the list. So it's very, very specific in what's healed, but that's the way the combat works. It can be very brutal, and I quite like that. So I'm just going to put that away, and we'll move on to druids.
One more cleric and a cleric-y thing in another system. In Harn Master.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that they have the mechanic in there that makes you earn favor with your god. They have a piety stat for clerics.
There's something similar in DCC.
Yeah, and your activity, in fact, DCC may have been borrowed from Harn because it's like an ancient system.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really cool because you have to do things as a cleric. You have to go out and have ceremonies, and when you hit a community, it's worth your time, which then fosters interacting with the world and role playing. You have to spend time to, hey, such and such want to get married. Okay, I'll perform that ceremony. +1 to my piety. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you build up your faith.
I believe, isn't that a similar one to the Dragon magazine article I sent you?
Yeah.
The Priest and Faith, yeah.
Yeah, Dragon did do one. Harn has had its own internal system for it.
That's fair enough.
But
it's another good way, but it depends on whether or not your DM wants to go into that level of details. I mean, yes, I know I would, but that's just down to what I like. But
I think it's one of those things that you and your cleric player are probably going to want to talk about and say, "Hey, man, if you have a cleric who is already bothering to role play his cleric, then why not?
Yeah.
Because the benefit then is that he can get, if you especially with the AD&D system, he can get above and beyond the abilities of his class by becoming really, tight with his god. I mean, there are things where you basically get a permanent protection from evil at high enough, high enough piety, until you drop down below. And if you drop down too low, you can start getting curses and eventually be smitten.
I mean, in DCC, you can fall out of favor with your god, can't you? And
yeah, there's a divine disapproval, but how it works is it resets at the beginning of each day back to 1. Yeah, I don't think you can, unless you really piss off your god. I don't think you can lose from divine disapproval. I don't think. It's been a while since I've read DCC. It has been a while.
All right, I think we've lingered on the clerics and their holiness long enough. Let's go back to nature, back to nature,
the druid.
Okay. All right, so time for some ritual sacrifice.
God.
The druid.
Loves me some druids.
It is, of course, the class that DK is most closely linked to, as he is Gaelic. And
no, that's not true, because I'm a Catholic. Thank you very much, or at least I was raised one anyway.
Hello, can you not see the spelling of my name?
Yeah, but you're British. You're British. You've appropriated the name.
Scottish heritage.
If we're going by heritage, I should be worshiping some crusty old tree in northern Germany somewhere. But
now, well, Sean, you're to be fair, the Scots are discount Irish anyway. So
can we just go back into talking about why the Druids are so
evil, depraved, and should be utterly defeated whenever we see them?
Let's talk about the history of the Druid first. Now, I don't know. I'm guessing did it come from Dragon magazine? Is it an edition?
It was a fan submission, if I remember correctly. At least this is what Tim Kask said, that it was a fan submission. And it came in because it like Swords and Wizardry includes them, and it includes the Greyhawk supplement and the Blackmore. And I think they came in Blackmore, or was it Eldritch? No, it was Eldritch Witchery, I think, or Wizardry. I think it was Eldritch Wizardry that they came in.
Right.
If I remember
my
correctly.
first experience with them is
Is AD&D.
AD&D, and they always intrigued me in AD&D. They got spells very quickly. They used agricultural weapons and no armor. We'll come to the arguments about all of that later. And it's a class I've never played. And I quite like it in some ways, but it's one of those classes that I have a problem with. Because firstly, it's what I class as a me class, where yes, they're neutral, but the DM has to, if played right, the cleric isn't a good party class, because they're supposed to have very much their own agenda, and the DM has to think about reasons for the cleric joining the druid joining an adventuring party, even because they are supposed to be bound to nature and neutral and work for nature and work for the balance of nature. So I've always that part I've always found quite difficult. It's a bit of a me. They're not a natural fit.
They're not a team player, basically.
Not a natural team player class.
Especially
right.
with that whole in support of nature thing, which is almost contrary to typical.
Because you're trying to subdue and conquer nature for the benefit of civilization. That's typically what you're doing as an adventurer. And then the druid comes in and is like you're going into hostile territory that's been claimed, that's been lost to nature, ruins and stuff, and you're clearing it out of the denizens, the monsters, to claim the treasure.
So yes, but you're not claiming. You're not coming in and cutting down the lands and so forth.
Well, when you get to domain level play, you kind of are.
We're not even at domain level play at the moment. Let's start there. We're starting from level 1 to level 5 and 6.
Yeah,
and you're just going to be dealing with the local denizens, and at that point, you're going to be having things like, let's just take goblins. They are not kind to nature.
The druids are going to want them out of there also.
Exactly. So when it comes to druids,
the problem is once the goblins are driven off, the DM then has to find another reason for the
I don't see that as being the big problem, really. There are a multitude of ways, and the DM can think of a multitude of ways for which it can be done. Sometimes you got to go far away from your grove to defeat an evil, to prevent it from coming to you. There are a multitude of ways you can start arguing, I have to go out and do this because as long as the group agrees we're doing this for the benefit of, let's say, a community. If the group agrees that this community here, where we live, this is what we're going to look after for, then you can easily justify a lot of why a druid would be running around. Where I often find that it's going to be difficult is then down to, where do you then define this sort of neutrality? Because you, at some point or another, you are not going to be doing something that is really going to be true neutral. You're going to be breaking that oath between the two alliances. Because from my perspective, a druid isn't just a cleric. He's an ambassador. He is the middleman between the Fae, the deep forest, and the civilizations that are at the very edges of these areas. And he's got to negotiate both sides. He's got to make sure that the treants don't get offended by the loggers, and he's got to make sure that the loggers the huntsmen aren't just needlessly hunting down every single rabbit and squirrel, to make sure that there's some form of balance. They're going to be quite busy on that end. So that's where it sort of breaks down for me, because at some point something can happen, or the players might say or decide something, and the druid might not catch that they've just made an agreement that's going to have lasting effect to an area. And that's where I can see druids being hit quite hard, or they are very difficult to do. It's
Is it just me, or did the druid feel like somebody wanted to make a priestly class that was more like the magic user? In that, they're not the big heavy-hitting, bashy melee guy, but they're still sort of nature-y, priesty.
Possibly, but I think it's more that when you're looking at the origins of the classes, you're looking at a lot of sort of European influences, European myths, European legends. You've got so much Arthurian legend in there. You've got the influence of Tolkien.
I mean,
You've got the influence of history, and we've already mentioned Bishop Otto.
Oh no, I just meant mechanically. Like, when they were looking at how to build it,
Oh, the Druid. I would say it's more I would say it has more in common with the like the Skinwalker Native American shaman than it does the Celtic Druids. Like there is some overlap between the two of them, but I think that in the same way that we get the barbarian from from Conan, I think we derive that from like the cowboy and Indian stories that a lot of fantasy writers at the time in America were writing about.
But again,
at least
fantasy is derived from as much from truth
multiple
as it
sources.
is,
Yeah.
archetypical things.
Oh yeah, I just don't know how much Gygax would have had access to like the what little history is written about the Druids in America in the 1970s. Like that was largely more for academics, but maybe he did. I don't know.
I think he would have done.
He was a heavy reader.
Considering I had access to that at age 8 and 9 through the library.
I'm only speculating from the fact I don't know how much the Druid information was readily available to Americans. I don't know because I don't live in the States. So
No, we have books. We know how to read.
I know. I never said you did. I just don't know how prevalent they are. That's all.
We even have electricity and internal combustion engines. And the Native Americans haven't even been a problem for a century.
Too topic, gentlemen. God damn it! No.
Oh God, he put the mic to his mouth. He's really getting agitated.
But okay, going back to
Staxius, calm. Take a Xanax. Calm down. Breathe. It's fine. It's okay. The pain will be over.
Native Americans comes from the fact that I had a friend who moved here to Washington from New Jersey, and in his primary school education, his teachers were still talking about how we had trouble with Indians in Washington in the Pacific Northwest. It's like, no. Anyways, Sax, just continue, please.
Right, going back to Druids. Mechanically in AD&D, they had a good range of spells. They were not so much healers. Animal friendship, very powerful low-level spell, and in the right environment, so was
Speak with animals as well.
Speak with animals, yeah, great little spells, very very useful for outdoor adventuring. Obviously, not so useful indoor adventuring, which was a problem because a lot of low-level adventuring, certainly in the early days, took place in dungeons. They were not quite as strong as clerics in combat due to worse armor class and the fact that they got I think there was a slight difference in weapon proficiencies that the Druids had. I think there was a bigger non-proficiency penalty or something.
Yeah, they're -3. No, I think that's -4. Druid is -4, whereas a cleric is -3 for non-proficient.
Yeah. Did they have the same number of proficient weapons? I think they did. Oh, they gained weapons
2.
more slowly. Something like that. There was a difference in
They had different weapons. Like the Druid could take the sling. They could use a scimitar. Well, a sickle. Use scimitar stats though.
Basically, yeah, because the scimitar was the only curved sword, curved cutting weapon that existed.
If you look under scimitar in the first ed list, it says the scimitar stats also include cutlasses and sickles, right?
Right, yeah.
It was that whole how it works, not exactly what it is. They were much more generalist and abstract.
Straw Piglet's right in that. Yes, Fairy Fire was a good level.
Fairy Fire, again, Speak with Animals is a great utility spell, and it's the fact, and it's unique to first ed. I didn't see it in any of the other editions. Speak with Animals actually makes all animals of the type you declare in the area non-hostile.
That's another case of those old school spells being much more than what they are now.
Yeah, you got a pack of dire wolves bearing down on you. You want that Speak with Animals spell because it'll make the whole pack non-hostile.
Yeah.
That's all you need. And then if you've got a ranger in the group, those two are just going to synergize
Yeah,
fantastically.
no, that's
Because
fantastic.
That,
But the other note about druids in first ed that a lot of people miss is their spell progression is different too. You
It's
get
quick,
second
very
level
quick.
They're the
spells
first level. Yeah, they
at
get
second
first
level.
levels.
You get third
they
level
get magic at
spells
first
at
level, yeah.
third level. So
Yeah.
you're calling lightning at third level.
Mm.
But they can't use armor. They can't use armor, could they?
They can't use non-metal armor. They can use anything
Still-
natural.
Oh yeah, their shields. Their shields. That's what I'm saying. The shields are gone.
Shield has to be wood. Armor has to be leather or hide.
Yeah.
Or
oh, by the
or
way, just
scale.
as
Creature
a
scale,
side note,
right?
this is just me being a bit pedantic because I'm a dickhead. Mazes. Dryads are a type of nymph. Just tangent. Just side thing.
Maybe so, but in D&D terms, they're different creatures. So
Let's
Yeah.
go back.
Well,
But
in
okay,
some-
no. On that topic though, because the druids, at least in second edition, as they get higher up, they become more immune to the charms of the dryads, the nymphs, and the
Yeah.
other fey creatures, which is also a major.
it's a major ability. Yeah.
It's and there are
Yeah.
some great benefits for having a druid in your party. Again, if you as a group have decided like, okay, we are going to be wilderness adventuring, we're going to go out into the deep forest, into the primeval forest. Get a ranger, get a druid, you are set. You are gonna be set.
Until their ideologies clash.
yeah, because one is neutral good and the other is true neutral.
Well, again, like I can still see those two synergizing very well because they don't want to cause any harm for the animals. But then this is then down for where the druids would then have to sit down with the DM and go like, well, how are we going to be defining true neutral? How is that going to be working in with, the group? And this is one of the areas where I always felt that the druid served significantly better as an NPC class, purely because of the restrictions of what a true neutral is meant to be doing, or at least the way that I understand true neutral to be.
See, I've never had those problems come up. We got people playing druids in my games all the time, and I think part of it is the approach. Like I've seen a lot of people come in and they're like, well, they got to be the tree hugger, and so they're almost an extremist in terms of, okay, I got to protect the woods. I'm gonna destroy everybody. It's like, well, no, you don't destroy everybody who cuts down a tree. You have to imagine the balance and think the balance. How does it apply? And I mean, something Saksha said earlier, they're sort of an ambassador. They are, but they're also a caretaker and a protector. But it doesn't necessarily go against the grain of an adventuring group. Druids, especially young druids, the initiates, are sent out specifically to adventure and to learn the ways of the world and get practical experience for their job.
I think we're going quite quickly into one of the topics I do want to touch on in terms of druids. There's a lot of misconceptions, and there's a lot of people extreme assumptions regarding druids, that people think of them as the hippie, the vegan tree hugger, as you say. No,
I don't.
They live with nature. They understand the balance of nature. They hunt for food and skins and use the bone and make sure they use all of the animal. They don't destroy nature. They understand that hunting is part of nature. The whole food chain and everything. They would fully understand that. Like for example, what they did in Yellowstone Park, where they reintroduced wolves, and within a few years, a few of the watercourses were running much more lush with vegetation and wildlife because they introduced wolves, which naturally reduce and cause the population of deer to move. And that is so much that is the balance of nature, and that's what the druids will understand. So they're not going to lambast somebody for cutting a tree down if there is a purpose behind cutting a tree down, and they're not logging for profit. If you're cutting a tree,
cycle.
Exactly. If you're cutting a tree down to build a small home to live in, there's nothing wrong with that, because you're not wantonly destroying nature beyond what is necessary for just general living. And one thing is noticeable. I mean, I'll come on to this as well because Ella's mentioned the thing about metals and whatever. They don't like worked metals in industry, but they will use metal tools. If you notice, all of their weapons are tool-like weapons, simple hunting weapons, axes, the sickle,
Spears.
the spears. They are simple tool-like weapons, and most of them serve that sort of purpose, and they don't mind using metals for that sort of purpose. And that's why they can use the metal weapons, because it's not taking it beyond what you'd see as being a natural means of subsistence, if you get my point.
No, it is. It's the whole idea of, as you're saying, you got to allow nature to have its cycles. You got to make sure that there is a form of balance between, you don't want too many herbivores, you don't want too many carnivores, and
Exactly.
Then you bring in the whole, mix of, you've got treants who doesn't want, to see, the trees just mindlessly chomp down. So you got to make sure there's a buffer zone between them and the little foresters. So yeah, it's a huge responsibility, and at the lower levels, a druid, initiates, as Sean said, they got to learn from experience. Go adventuring is the best way, and you also have to, be faced with some of the moral challenges of, when do you hold back, when do you do things, and it's just Go on.
Brian James has mentioned a module that I've run quite a few times, UK5, Eye of the Serpent. There were actually two UK modules that really pushed the usefulness of the Druid. The other was UK1, Beyond the Crystal Cave. Both of those modules, written by the British team, pushed the unfashionable adventuring class of Druid into the forefront. Wilderness, dealing with a lot of animals, and really allowed the Druids to flourish, which is, I like those modules for that purpose.
Certainly.
So, as we've already said, I know the Druid was brought into later BECMI. Was it a Rules Compendium edition?
In the Companion.
In the Companion. I didn't have the Companion set. I only went as far as Expert.
Yeah, a neutral cleric could switch over and become a druid if they wanted.
Yeah, that's kind of how they tended to handle most of the more advanced classes, wasn't it? That
a lawful fighter could be a paladin and or a neutral could be a knight. Yeah.
Which is kind of a cool way to do it.
It's got its merits.
If you're going to introduce it into a game that already exists and a game that grows organically with the players, it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. The General Nut disagrees. He doesn't like the way they did it in BECMI.
Don't play BECMI. I don't play BECMI either.
No, I haven't touched any of the versions of D&D before first.
Second.
Technically, BECMI was after first edition.
Yeah. BECMI is just expanding on BX, basically.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'd say it's more expanding on OD&D, but yeah.
No, it's expanding on BX. Because the core of BECMI is BNX.
BX, yeah, it's like 90% similar.
I'm going to have to step away for a couple of minutes because I'm being harassed by my dog she won't stop until I take her out. So
stream is ours.
Speaking of stream, your animal companion beckons.
Yeah,
Saxius, before you go. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, Saxius. I love you.
He needs to roll his loyalty test, and he failed. And here we are. We are in charge.
Oh no, Saxius is in charge now. We're all doomed.
Great. Great. I still won't listen to him.
Allow me to share my screen and show you some Excel sheets. Now
No, this is torture.
Sanity check.
He cast Gate and dragged us to the 9 hells. This is awful.
We gain arcane knowledge, but we lose sanity.
Remember, DK, you were the one who said that you would say no, yet here I am forcing you to look.
I might regret asking, but what's on the spreadsheets?
Everything. All the inner workings of his mind.
No. What it is a 4-letter word. It's called pain. Pain.
Yeah, Grumpy, but
Pain.
Saxius isn't a druid, so
Yeah, he's a lawful evil thief because he's stealing away my sanity.
He's a specialist priest of law
he's an eldritch
and
demon.
order.
No,
There
because he doesn't believe in the 3-pronged alignment system like I do. He's lawful
No, I
evil.
I wasn't talking about
Mm.
law as in the alignment. I was talking about law as in the mechanical, the civics, the structure.
I don't think that's coming through.
The
God
s-
damn it.
Good. Like the universe is punishing you for daring inflicting this upon us.
So keeping us on topic, I'm curious now how you guys play your clerics in the games. Like, do you enforce the dogma? Do you somebody asked
I
way
do.
back early in the stream, do your clerics proselytize? As a DM, how do you wrangle
in
your
my line and
cleric
dragon game, they do.
players?
In Line and Dragon, they are divinely ordained warriors and saints by God, and they go on crusade to destroy creatures of chaos and demonic incursions. In the Amherst game I'm running, because I'm doing this as an experiment, I am allowing druids and clerics to exist harmoniously in so much as they can. But if I were running it as like a homebrew game, I'd be like, no. I would not allow druids and clerics to be in the same setting. Either the druids are the main religious authority in an Iron Age or Dark Ages setting, long before the establishment of a Catholic or unified Mother Church, or the Mother Church is established and either assimilated the druids into the Mother Church or exterminated or driven the other ones into hiding, like the druids into hiding. So.
Yeah, I mean, and in your world, that's cool.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that's how everyone should do it. I'm just saying that's how I do it.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say that's some nice lore.
Yeah. I don't force clerics to do their thing. I will sort of ask them occasionally, how they venerate their particular gods. I do often throw instances at them to give them a chance to do their thing. Like they might get, oh, you're a cleric of such and such. You're wearing the symbol of blah. Do the thing for me. Demands on their time. It's like every time they go to a village, and if they're if they're worshiping a god of agriculture and nature, and they go to a village, well, somebody's going to want them to bless the harvest.
I mean, yeah,
or marry somebody.
I mean, if a cleric, basically in like my Lion and Dragon game, if a cleric shows up and they're not like the adventuring party, if there's like an NPC cleric there, that means something horrible has either they're recruiting like basically children who have manifested miraculous powers by God and are being inducted into the order, or a demonic incursion is happening. Like cult activity is in the area, or a demon is running amok. In which case, you like seeing a cleric, while like a cool thing, smart people will realize that something really bad is afoot, and you don't want to see clerics around because they're portents of extreme danger.
I tend to fall to the more of the old school Gygaxian as far as how common clerics are, where like most sizable, population centers are going to have a cleric. You may not.
Oh yeah. No, that's true. I'm just saying, like in the
portent of doom.
Oh yeah. But in a medieval setting where like 1 in every 10, 20, 30,000 people were ordained as saints, clerics would be a lot rarer. Like way rarer.
I think it's important to distinguish that priests and clerics are different too. Clerics are specifically the ones who go out and crusade, whereas a priest could be a stay-at-home type person, right?
Exactly.
Second edition made that real easy because your clerics were, kind of your adventurers, and your priests were,
I'm just going back to the question that Sean posed.
Go for it.
It boils down to what the player and the group is willing to do. So I don't see a reason why I should. I have all the resources and the energy to go full ham, but it would be wasted should a player turn around and say, I don't want to go into that level of details. I don't want to have to sit with a calendar and mark off the same days like you do to make sure that I hit the right holidays and we do the right things on these days. But if the player is willing to do that, I would love to. do it. I would love to have piety points to keep track of what they do and what they don't do. But what I do enforce is that whichever god the player picks, that player and I have to sit down and say, what is the ethos of said god, and how is it interpreted in that player's sect, so that we both have an understanding of what the god of agriculture and family means, for example, so that we are not, sitting with two different sets of notes and going, oh, well, why would you allow horses to be harmed in order to scare away, hobgoblins, as an example.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. I never get tired of that joke.
About the sort of proselytizing type thing, I'm going to bring in a story I have mentioned a few times in the past. My party running through Call of Cthulhu, drink, Horror on the Orient Express. One of my players was playing a stereotypical Deep South fire and brimstone, praise the Lord type individual. And of course, he was the first one to start being driven mad. And he decided that everything that was happening, that was going wrong, was the fault of European attitudes towards carnal behaviors, and the women of the night. So whenever they stopped in a new city along the route, first thing he would do when he got off the train was he'd find the red light district of whatever city they were in, like Paris, for example, and go and shout at all the prostitutes and get himself arrested. So every morning, without fail, the party would then go to the nearest police station and have to get him out of his cell. And that was happening every single city they stopped in, because he was driven to that fervor by seeing some of the things he was seeing happening.
He read someone swapped his Bible for the Necronomicon, and it started driving him insane.
I love it when players playing religious characters do that, though. They interpret events as signs. Like most players, 90% of them are they're playing a game. They're not in the characters at that point. They just this is the event of the game. But the ones who really dive in, it's like, no, it's a sign from the gods. We're on the right path. Or it's a sign from the gods. We're on the wrong path, right? And just completely run with it. But I don't like to force players into that, because in players different comfort levels and ability.
Oh, it's completely his idea.
Yeah. Oh no, that's great.
They arrive in Paris and he goes stomping off to the red light district to start shouting at the ladies of the night. It's like great.
Yeah. Let's say that's great. It's great when players do that.
That reminds me of in another game I got to play, and I convinced the entire group that whoever had the fanciest hat was the leader. That's why the king sits with a golden throne, and therefore we cannot get anything more fancy than that. It's just, and then that became a whole thing, and we were then arguing whether or not we could make it into a religion, and we had to get fancier and fancier hats, because of course no one stopped me, so I was allowed to just run with it. No one said no.
I had a friend once who played a fanatic. This was my second ed game, and we were playing players options. So he actually took the fanatic disadvantage that you can take, and he played it to the hilt. It was brilliant. He was lawful good fanatic of Tyr, and he was ruthless. Like anybody stepped out of line, he beat them senseless. He's like, "I'm a team leader. You will fall in line."
But isn't Tyr like a mega love thy neighbor kind of guy?
Oh, he's the god of
the maimed god. He's the maimed god.
He's a paladin.
Yeah, law and order and discipline and justice.
But I just kind of like more like I will show some level of mercy to those, not like you step on a line once, like you put your hand on the line once. I cut. Right. Okay.
A rational person will show mercy and reason.
Well, I mean, like if if he's a fanatic of a pacifist god, he might be fanatically pacifistic.
But he was
Yeah, yeah,
militant.
yeah.
He was also of a soldier kit too, so he was filtering all of the
Right.
character traits
Okay.
into his choices.
Can I step in here? Because I just realized something.
Go for it.
John, are we not meant to have a topic for druids?
What do you mean?
Are we off the topic, or did we have any other areas?
Well, John's back now. We went off this little tangent because John was stepping away. But
I just
Shall
wanted
we
to
go back
check,
to druids?
Yeah, let's go back to druids.
We're still talking. We're on topic still because we're still talking about clerics and stuff, and that's
Yeah,
the
we are.
whole
We've
purpose.
talked
but-
clerics to death, though. We're
Okay.
supposed to give druids some love. You know, some love. And
Okay,
kumbaya.
okay. Shall
No,
we go back
why would I want to give the tree hugging hippies love? Keep it to
Right.
the clerics.
So, I'm going to come to one thing I really, really dislike. I'm not going to go through the editions with druids so much because obviously I haven't played them in 3rd edition, haven't played them in 4th edition, and I've experienced them in 5th edition. And 5th edition takes them to the nth degree, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, with
One of the-
shape and stuff.
One of the things I
Oh.
do not like about druids is their ability to wild shape. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hate that ability so much.
okay, I love the shape change in the
it-
early
it ta-
editions. They have
Yeah,
to earn
yes,
it.
that I will
The-
agree to.
The later
much more
edition, yeah,
limited.
the first level wild shape. No, I agree. I hate that. I think
Like
it's-
at high enough levels, I'm not even joking. You can wild shape into a dragon and keep
Oh,
all of
I'm
your
aware.
spells, all your class abilities, all of it. Whereas it's like, and a wizard, if he polymorphed into a dragon, would just have dragon stuff. The druid could just like, oh yeah, I can do everything I could before, but I'm also a dragon.
Yeah, they've taken it too far. They've taken it far too far. In my
No,
opinion.
that
they've made
that's
they've
the
made it
wild
modern
shape spell,
editions.
not the but still, it's
they've made
still-
it. They've made it the core of the class. The whole wild shaping thing.
Yeah, whereas in old school, it's one of their abilities. It's a key ability, but it's also extremely limited. Like you could do one shape. You had 3 types.
Yeah, bird,
lizard,
a
bird,
fish,
and
and
mammal.
a mammal. Yeah.
Once
Like Swords
each
of
per
Wizard does that.
day.
Like, yeah, it's
And
great. It's,
yeah, it was useful, but it wasn't.
I think
as you say, it wasn't the whole class was based around. Oh, I can turn into animals and fight.
didn't it also heal you? Because I know in Sword and Wizardry, I don't know how close it is to AD&D, but didn't it like at least in Swords of Wizards like heals you for like 1d6 times 10 HP, whereas in the new school
Yeah,
it gives
1d6
you
times
extra
10% of your hit points.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it also, but in 5th edition at the very least, from what I'm most familiar with, it just gives you a cushion of like what would be like pseudo temporary hit points.
Yes.
And it can
And
be
it's like-
50 odd hit points. So it can be massive.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
turns combat
it's
into
insane.
even more of
I'm
like a.
not sure in 5th edition if they could turn into a dragon.
No, there's a
I think
spell.
he's exaggerating
the spell,
to
the
make the
ninth
point,
level,
but
Yeah.
yeah.
the ninth level spell that druids get that's basically a polymorph spell. They can do that. It lets them do that.
But that's a
That's
spell
fair.
as opposed to wild shape.
Yeah, that's I did differentiate that there is that the spell rather than the wild shape, but the wild shape is still utterly broken. It's like you go,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to take 2 levels in barbarian, then I'm going to wild shape into a bear, and I'm going to start raging as a bear.
Mhm.
Yeah, to me, it becomes very, very superhero-esque in style, in my opinion. It goes too far. It takes away the verisimilitude for me.
Well, verisimilitude is not part of 5e.
No,
right.
no,
I know, yeah, I know, but
Cheers, Halakha.
Fifth edition is its own thing. Like they're looking to achieve other things as well. So, like it is what it is. But like I think for the majority, it's maybe not our cup of tea. But I've just looked up the wild change in 2nd ed. It's like 1d6 times 10% of your HP that's regained from that, and that's neat. I mean, you're going to be limited in how many times you can do it. And I'm sure there are other things that you can do as well, because I believe there's
yeah,
spell
sorry,
casting.
sorry, my mic is bad. It's like a 3-year-old headset. I'm sorry.
It sounds like you're creaking a little. It might be.
It's my chair. It might be my chair.
My chair's creaking too, so you might be hearing me.
Okay.
But
yeah, I mean, I don't like what druids have become. They've been taken too far from the original inspiration of the druid class. They've just become some sort of a shape-changing spellcaster now, and I liked them when they had that sort of that Celtic feel about them.
Yeah.
The amount of arguments I see about people arguing about right. There's the wording.
Arguments about arguments.
The wording in the 5th edition Player's Handbook for Druids has caused so many rules lawyer online arguments. It really, really annoys me.
What an example? What exactly?
Part of it is the use of the term beast, which is a monster classification in 5e.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. Right.
Okay.
A beast is anything natural.
Oh yeah, like owlbears, like the whole owlbear argument of like.
It's not so much that. I'm just gonna find it. Here we go.
And by the way, the thing you were talking about, DK, where they can turn into a shape and still use all their abilities, like their spells and stuff. They
can't cast spells. Yeah. They can't cast spells, but they I think at low levels they can wild shape and still rage if they're a barbarian. They don't they can't cast their spells, but they can use class abilities and racial abilities. Even at because if you're an ASMR and you're a druid, you can wild shape and still turn on your ASMR ability.
Here, this is the exact phrase. This is the exact phrase that causes the argument. Proficiencies: armor, light armor, medium armor, shields. Druids will not wear armor or use shields made of metal.
Yeah, makes sense.
They argue there. People argue that it says they will not. Thus, it is a role-playing thing. It's not that they cannot.
Yeah,
and that has caused so many arguments. And I've had rows on Reddit about this. It says, well, as far as I'm concerned,
first mistake.
As far as I'm concerned, if it says they will not, if you play a druid, you will not do that. You will not.
Yeah.
You won't even try. Because that is not playing a druid. You would cease to be a druid, in my opinion. People then argue saying, "Oh, you're taking away the player's agency." It doesn't say they can't.
Yes,
it says they won't.
Well, no, they have the agency. They have the agency to play a druid. Yeah, I was about to say they have the agency not to play. If they want to use metal armor and shields, play a fighter or play a cleric.
You wouldn't believe how many people argue the toss for that.
Yes, I would.
Oh, I would, dude. Yeah. The games I've played in, I've seen far worse.
Now,
I've seen far.
There's a lot, just like any other edition. There's a lot of people playing this edition that don't know or follow or choose to use all of the rules.
Yeah,
so that's been there for every edition. It's not new to
That's true.
And arguments over language are probably fewer now than they were then because they're using more plain English in 5e. I mean, I'm not 5e is not my favorite D&D. It is not my favorite RPG, but I also play it and have fun. And also, I just reread the Druid stuff, and they still have heavy limitations on what they can do in wild shape. So chances are a lot of people were playing it wrong. So
it depends on which circle they follow, doesn't it, in terms of their wild.
Well, if you take the circle that specializes in wild shape, sure. Circle of the Moon, I think it is, or whatever.
Isn't that what most of them do, though? But what also gets me,
it is the most common druid circle in the game.
What also gets me though is how far some of the newer druid archetypes veer away from the idea of them being priests of nature. As far as I'm concerned, if you are playing a druid, you are beholden to nature, the forest, the weather, and all that sort of stuff. And people are saying, "Oh, I can." There were druids. There's a fungus druid and things like that, and it's like
that's something that's Zagutmoy. That's like a dark cleric of Zagutmoy or something.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Well, first of all, it also didn't make the cut for official content. It's still just an optional UA. So
yeah.
It's something they proposed. The wildfire druid did make it, and then fire is part of nature.
Yeah,
There are whole trees that can't reproduce without fire.
I guess what I just want to see is just a druid that is based on the traditional interpretation.
Zaxius is getting the book out. We triggered him. He's getting the book. He's getting the book.
Who is the interpretation of the basic druid would probably be the Circle of the Land.
Yeah, leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean,
no other ones. No more.
There's
no
also
more than that.
the Circle of the Moon. You could get away. You go for it.
You've also got. I'm just going to I'm pulling out my second edition here because you've got a druid which is called the Hive Master, specifically looking at the control of insectoid or even
Are you talking about the kits? Yeah.
Is that the kit book?
That is the kit book. Yeah.
That kit can die in fire. That book can die in the fire.
And you can say that, but here it is, printed. It's right here.
In only the second edition of the game.
No, what I am trying to bring out here is that there is going to be much more for a druid to be than just like, oh, you're only going to be the forest here and so on. You can still be from swamps. You can still be from the underground. You can still various other variations. A fungi druid would be working very closely with the myconids.
And representing decomposition in nature and how death is part of nature.
There's nothing wrong with having some specialization in
as DM and as owner of this particular channel that we're all talking on. I'm stating now, making an executive decision. No, it's not allowed.
I'm saying okay. This is the thing. Geek is trying to argue from the spirit of what the origin of the druid versus the legalistic interpretation of it's in a book.
You yourself argued that the druid class is nothing near the origin of the druid.
Again, I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is what Geek is saying.
Oh, I get you.
Wait a minute. Geek and
hello, Omanal, by the way.
Hello. I just want to say that
I already said hi.
Anyway, into arguing about this, I like the Iron Kingdom's druids, which are pretty thoroughly evil. I like them from the non-traditional, it's not this neutral stuff. It's kind of, that's why I was holding up this Unleashed, for Iron Kingdoms.
Yeah, they're the eco-terrorists.
They're the eco-terrorists who are, will wipe out whole cities and do all sorts of other stuff, throw in potions to turn people into werewolves. I mean, that to me is
Omanal. That's I was saying that earlier when if the druids are the main, if it's either I allow druids, in which case I make them the good guys because they're the priestly class and they're in tune with the gods of the setting. Or I have the clerics being the dominant religion, and they're the good guys, in which case the druids are very dangerous at best, or outright chaos worshippers at worst. So they're very dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
But see, I like having druids as the villains, not as the heroes.
AD&D cast them in the role of villain pretty frequently, actually.
Well, you know what? There was it was a third-party module years ago when talking about earlier that had this big long history about the Romans and the Celts and talking about the Druids.
Yeah, the cannibalism, the human sacrifice, like the brutality of what some of the Celtic warriors were doing. Like Celtic society was pretty dark. It was pretty brutal.
But I mean, part of it is, and this is just me, and it depends on how what the type of game that you like. But I like the idea that there's this dichotomy between civilization and and I won't say wilderness or the untamed. And if you go classical aspect, then it's always this is where Lovecraft versus Howard comes in too, where you start getting into this whole thing of or Hawthorne. He's like, oh, there's evil out in the woods. You want to stay close to civilization because out there it's dangerous. It just depends on what type of game you want to really run. Do you want to run a high fantasy,
rugged,
or do you want to run a high fantasy 5e, where there's not really that many limitations even at low level, until you start planes hopping, or do you want to play the gritty? Hey, when I leave the safety of the little village or the keep, I might not be coming back today. You
And
know?
in that respect, I mean, 5e does make a good toolkit because you can really make it into whatever fantasy game you want. If you wanted,
Easy.
for example, to do what to make Geek happy, you could limit druids. There's only one kind of druid. They're a generalist druid. They're the circle of the land. You could do that, and and that would be the rules for your campaign. I'm not sure how many players you'd find in 5th edition communities, but
well, I think that's part of the
here's a question. Here's a question. Was Lord Summerisle an arch druid?
Who is he? I don't
know who that is.
From
Wicker
he's
Man.
the leader of the cult in the Wicker Man.
I would say he'd probably be like an evil cleric, probably.
He's a crazy who believes he's a druid. How's that?
There we go.
Yeah.
he's a 1960s neo-pagan.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even
with
the
delusions of grandeur.
I mean, even if you look at like
and
Tony,
hillbilly syndrome.
when he was talking about the picks, I mean, the picks that they have there, or if you want to take a 5e or whatever campaign and you throw it into what is it, the Song of Fire and Ice, and you send them above the wall. What are the guys who can inhabit animals? How does that work?
The wargs. I would say that would be an interesting way to handle druidic shape changing. That actually is interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of. Don't get me wrong. My big problem with 5e is that it's easily abusable, and part of it comes in like Elf Bear's talking about. People don't read the stupid rules in the core book.
No, they don't.
I don't mean the player's handbook. I mean the Dungeon Master's guide. And to be fair, okay, fine. I did that when I was.
And a lot of people just ditch rules, plain and simple, because it's not their brand of fun. And I've done that as long as I've been playing.
That's fair.
Wasn't it like I'm just completely curious, because wasn't it like the player's handbook that was released first for 5th edition, followed by the Monsters Manual, then we got the DMG. That was released on.
Oh yeah, the DMG is clearly an afterthought.
Yeah,
the DMG is a well thought out book for 5e.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the better ones out there that no one.
Of the three core books, it's the best, I think.
The problem that you have with it, and this is what Elfbait's going is that my friend was getting kind of bored DMing, and he's kind of going through it, and he wants to throw in all of these optional rules from the DMG, and the players just rebel. So
I gave my group a checklist. I'm like, I did a survey. I'm like, here's 10 rules I'd like to run in the optional rules I'd like to do in the next campaign. Of the 10, 1 got the okay from everybody.
There's your problem. You're asking for permission from players.
Yeah, but I gotta play with them, and I'm not in the business of going around and standing on a corner with a sandwich board saying we'll.
I mean, I kind of take the sense of DMing the same way that a lot of people take cooking. You eat what I prepare.
Well, I'm going to bring it a little bit different.
Well, you often end up sitting at a table alone that way.
Yeah.
Well, I take the option better no D&D than bad D&D. I've been privy to enough bad D&D groups, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to run a D&D game I hate. Fuck that. I have better things to do with my time.
I will put forward a very different point here. Put stats into your charisma, and just persuade them into thinking.
I'm an autist, Saxius. That isn't going to work.
Oh, give me time.
This is where I know Elfbait would get into it. This is sometimes why I try switching people over to different systems, because either you can hack the system to get it what you want. It doesn't matter what it is, or this was the point that I know.
You're absolutely correct. If I was to sit there and say, let's play a fantasy game that isn't D&D and it did everything that I want D&D to do, I would probably get no argument.
Yeah,
I will say thank you, General Nut. L, go fuck yourself.
You know what? Stop trying to demonetize. Don't worry about L, DK.
We're like,
L's in a hospice. He'll die. Okay, I mean that's all right.
Yeah. Well, no, Al is just picking on me this whole time.
And L blocked today, and I even actually went to bat.
Yeah, that's weird. Like that's weird. Like I don't know why.
Ian, if you're out there, just you block me too, because I can't see your comments. I'm the nice guy in the stream. Come on,
you are.
I'm the kind of forward-thinking, moderate guy who likes new games and is happy with everybody. I mean, how do you block me? That's like blocking Paddington. Would you like some marmalade? Come on.
Hold it. It's no longer Elfmate. It's going to be Eli the Paddington Bear. This is he's going to have to put down there from now on. No,
fire. I can't breathe.
Wait a minute. The whole thing.
DK, mute yourself.
This is why Eli and I were arguing back and forth over it. It's not that a lot of it is. It's just hard in some cases. Is if the players have everything, then they want everything, and that's why it's to me. It's always been easier to say, "Here's your limited," and we'll add a little bit, which is what Sean's been doing in his OSE games. We've slowly been adding stuff, and you go, "Oh, okay." And the players either they. That's the way I felt.
We're kind of off topic, I guess, at this point, but I don't know. I don't know if we're in that part of the stream yet. Real quick, last thing on the thing that Omen's bringing up here. My brother, who thinks about gaming way more than I do, if you can imagine that. I mean, he's the kind of guy I get in a conversation with him, and I'm like, slow down. But and he put it a really great way. Rather than talk about the things you would like to change, just really hype the type of game or play that you would want to do. Like, I want a game that really pits you against nature, and it's man versus the environment, and there are real stakes. Talk it up like you're pitching your new TV series, rather than go, I want to take away your ability to heal quick, and I want to and you might get more people to play.
That's a good. Sorry, go on, Omen. You're first.
No, he's actually that's true, and that's why I try going for stuff for this. But that's also why I've said, hey, let's just try this out one time, and if you don't like it, and if the players feel like they aren't stuck with it, they're much more willing to try new things. Because
do a one shot or a 3-shot or something like that. Let's do a mini campaign.
Yeah, hey, let's try this one rule, this one session, and if you don't,
Zach just had to tell me what it is.
But if you say 1 or 2 sessions. Players are like, okay, look, we're not stuck with it if we don't like it, and they're much more willing for that. And I feel that that's the only way sometimes to do it. But anyway, I don't know how I feel about the Druids. I think part of the problem that I have with them is it's the way the players play them, not the concept of the Druid. It's very similar to the Monk. There's a lot of classes. That's why I just wish they'd done the 4 basic, and then I guess the BECME, rule cyclopedia. When you got to a certain level of cleric, then you could specialize into like a druid or something like that.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for having things like the druid as something that cleric becomes.
That almost sounds like a prestige class. That's a 3rd edition thing.
But no, there was the bard in the first edition. He became a bard.
True. It's not a new idea.
No. But I think we can agree the druid does have thematic issues with adventuring, but they can be worked around. As you say, the druids can be sent out to learn the way the world works. That is a good way of getting them out adventuring. And something we haven't touched on, the mechanics of the
metal
druids.
They are.
How down to earth there.
How quickly they advance through the levels in a
they have fast mid-level advancement, even faster than the thief at one point.
Well, then when they get to high level, it's all basically Highlander
Good night,
for them.
Yeah. I love that. The idea.
Like I said, they're metal. They have to kill other druids on purpose.
Well, you don't have to kill them. You just have to defeat them.
Yes.
Yeah, they ain't like the assassins. Defeat.
How often does defeat get interpreted in D&D as anything other than killing the fool?
Well, that's table to table, right?
Where do I begin? You have got the moral system. You've got HP. You've got. I can keep on going, but I'm sure I can drive that point home. But that's like you said, like Sean said, it's from table to table. Yeah.
I like that idea of them having to track down the druid. They're trying to. They have to usurp.
Doesn't the monk have to do something similar?
Yes.
Yeah, they have to
Yes.
beat them in hand-to-hand combat. Yeah, like I said, the assassins do as
It
well.
kind of goes back to my thought on when they were building the druid, where they're like, and I'm going to take a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B, and then I'm going to turn it into the druid. Because it was, as DK was saying, it's evidently a fan submission. So some guy probably, because they talk about like in modern old school homebrew stuff, they're like, look at the way that the thieves table works, and you can use that as like mechanics for a class, or or the turning table. And so
I'm gonna say one other thing though, and we're we all talk about advancing levels, but the other aspect is, as the DM, you're also expected to challenge that character every so often. So of course they'd have the low experience points, because you can get challenged every so often, and you can get knocked down a level if you were defeated. So it was. But the problem that I have with it, with certain classes, and I know some people talk whether it's paladins or anything else when we're in this, is why do you keep adventuring, for number one? And then number two is this the kind of class that limits the other players? And that's the other thing that it doesn't like. Oh, well, if you're playing one that's certain alignment limited, or who they're allowed to run with, whether it's barbarian or anything else, is okay, that's great if we have the group, but you get the one person says, well, I want to play a druid, and the other person says, I want to do this, and you go, well, which one's more compatible with the party? And I think
that's why I described it as a me class early on in the stream, because it is the type of class where a player playing a druid is likely to put demands on the party. They're not a great team class, and I will say now, I don't like the idea that druids can multi-class. I think I have this idea that certain classes are very much a cultural class. I think in order to be a druid, they've got to be devoted to that specific cause. And I didn't like it
does seem to work against their concept of neutrality and pure nature, kind of, because anything else is embracing some element of civilization or determinism in a different direction.
So let's see. What classes?
Well, in first edition, they couldn't. Core first edition, they couldn't multi-class. It was
by the time you
the dual class
Unearthed Arcana, but in core
they could dual class. They could
dual class, yeah.
Yeah, but only halflings and half elves could become druids in the original.
No, humans.
No, half-elves could. Halflings only could be NPC druids in the core by the book rules.
Yeah, and half-elves couldn't become druids until Unearthed Arcana, I think. I don't think they could.
Half-elves could be druids in the core.
Yeah. And they were unlimited. They were unlimited in core. I'm looking at that.
Really?
Yep.
Yes,
that
because they had human bits.
Yeah, going back to my earlier point. Yeah, true. Yeah,
and that was that. Well, I mean, this is kind of weird with the elves. Wild druids are limited to level, we'll just say the basic level of 10, but all others are unlimited. What? Why are the gray?
What is a wild druid? I mean, it's like...
no.
The wild elf came in.
Oh, okay.
The wild elf was the Grugach,
the Grugash, or whatever. Yes. I'm pretty sure it's probably some obscure Gaelic word, but
that to me makes no sense. Why is it that the wood elves or wild elves are the only ones that can't get the unlimited, unlike the elves?
It's the same logic that why can't elves be really badass, magic users or whatever,
Well, they could.
The wild elf was a more barbaric elf.
No, the wild elves are basically they take like pretty much from what I remember in the articles from Dragon, they kind of took the Sami from Finland and turned them into elves.
Yeah,
because they were depicted as riding reindeer and actually drawn wearing like traditional Finnish garb.
Well, allow me to insert some Scandinavian information for you. The Sami or the Sumis were very much viewed as barbarians by the rest of Scandinavia.
They're the local tribal folk that pretty much we all every land has had to deal with.
It's just a fun thing that it's like, well, the Swedes viewed them as absolute barbarians.
Probably because they were a pain in the butt and they did things differently.
They wouldn't be subjugated. That was why, because it was just going that high up in Finland. It was just no.
And in AD&D,
Also,
wild
Elman-
elves were a very barbaric form of elf.
Yeah.
I will say to loop it back to the thing, Omanal, to answer your question, why is it that with the thing, it's the reason why that they had those restrictions is just to incentivize human-centric play.
No. I know why they did. But my point is, why do you have unlimited for all elves except the Gruach? That's
because they were barbarian type.
They're more barbaric. They didn't have the capability of the
They didn't have the discipline.
The discipline, yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't have. They were too chaotic, basically. They were way too chaotic.
Because Gygax said so.
well,
yeah.
Everyone says Gygax, but a lot of this, let's see.
I know.
It's post Gygax, yeah.
It's,
His name still ended up on the book.
Jeff.
He still owned the IP at the time, so
Well, there's a lot of different things that just don't seem to make sense when you start
talking about
adding
like the Grugok and all that stuff like that, or whatever you want to pronounce him as. They're from Dragon, so
yeah.
Them and the Valley Elves. Remember the Valley Elves
from
Greyhawk?
Well, do you remember the edition 72 where they started talking like a Valley Girl, but as elves?
Oh my God, are you serious?
I don't.
Actually serious?
Well,
I'll come to that in a year and a half of my read-throughs.
So every,
Cheers, Hungar.
Every 12 or they had the April issues.
Get well soon,
Oh, the
Hungar.
April Fools ones, yeah.
Those were fantastic. I love them.
The Blink Woolly Mammoth.
Yeah, or like if I remember correctly, even the anti-paladin write-up
teleport in the air above you and then fall on you.
I mean, like even the anti-paladin, the way it's described is like they wear all black. They have like a skull keep and stuff like that. Like it was obviously written as like tongue in cheek.
No, the anti-paladin wasn't in an April edition.
No. The April edition was the Jock, which had the ability that so much that it could cause saving throws or enfeeblement. There was all sorts of stuff. But there were awesome episodes.
The anti-paladin goes back far enough where the magazine was still called The Dragon, so that's how early it came in.
Sea dwarves.
Anyways, clerics.
I think we're done.
I'm right above Saxius, so his energy is just kind of rising up into my square.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
It's just the like smoke is just billowing up out of his screen, and it's just coming up beneath
I'm getting a contact alignment.
I think I'm going to have to duck out now because
Saxius, I wanted you to go on the Ecclesiarchy for the Warhammer 40K.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The Ultimate Clerics.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Do you just want me to do a brief rundown of the Ecclesiarch or just my thoughts?
And the super extreme version, the Redemptionists?
Yes. Whatever you want to throw in there, go for it, Saxius.
Good. Okay, so when we're going to go in for clerics in the Warhammer universe, in the Warhammer 41st, there are so many possibilities, but the core thing really is that you are going to go straight in for the fanaticism. And whatever you think is up there, you got to take it even higher up because it is going to be as...
These are the people who invented the chainsword fused with a flamethrower. So fire goes around the chain.
Exactly.
That joke of, brother, fetch me the flamer. The heavy flamer.
There are members within the Ecclesiarch or the core church of the Warhammer 41st Millennium where they just go like, you know what? I'm just going to take a brazier, apply a shit ton of gasoline, and they will just poof.
Or how about the one guy who goes to battle riding a giant automated pulpit?
Yeah,
that just carries him.
Yeah, that's the Inquisitor, the High Inquisitor. I think
that's one of them. But
yeah,
at the very same time,
yeah.
The churches because of the rule. I mean, we like our rules lawyers around here, and Omanau have just got me fired up on this. It is a rule that the church can have no men at arms,
and thus they have an army of women.
They have an army of women.
Nice.
Who have the Holy Trinity, the Holy Trinity of the Bolter, the Flamer, and the Melta.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just saying, just the Adeptus
They have a
Sororitas.
missile launcher that looks like a pipe organ.
All I'm gonna say is I'm half tempted now for my Apocalypse game to allow clerics to be able to use flamethrowers.
Instead of dreadnoughts, they have penitents strapped out on a humanoid frame that then races into battle. I mean, they are
that is like, if you want to go, like, we've talked about fantasy, but like sci-fi just opens up a whole other can of worms.
But you can even do them in a fantasy setting. Imagine that. Like, they've got golems that instead of having a brain, they just strap a penitent in there, and they're like, instead of binding a spirit, they're like, you are bound to this golem, and you will fight the bad guys.
Elf, we're just talking about Dragon Age now.
That's true.
That's what with the dwarves. Yeah, no, like the administration.
That's sweet. The more you talk about this, I really should give clerics flamethrowers in my apocalypse game. That sounds really cool.
Absolutely. It's just
make a magic mace that has the properties of a flame brand.
No. Mine's a World War II style apocalypse with magic. So there's going to be guns.
Power
oh, you mean so? Is that called Atun Cthulhu?
Or the Last War. There's a new miniatures game out called The Last War where the Great War never ended, and it just got weird until creepy weird.
Yeah, but mine's more Fallout. Mine's more Fallout than yeah. So
anyways, yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Saxius and I both appreciate, have an equal love for the insanity that is the ecclesiarchy.
Yes, thank you.
Well, it's insanity, my friend. I see nothing but based individuals.
You've never met a red redemptionist.
All I'm saying is, man, suffer the mind. Blessed is the mind too small for doubt.
Can we say church limousine? It's a cathedral limousine.
Poor Saxius is just trying to exit, and nobody's letting him go.
No, I need to say this because there's an actual. So Dark Heresy, they did have a novel that came out, or a 2-part novel, and one of the characters is a red redemptionist, and I absolutely love how one character just takes a little bit of interest in her religion, and she immediately goes like, oh, well, it sounds like you have sinned, my good man. I will need to murder you right here and now because my religion requires me to murder all sinners that I come across. And that was it was hilarious just reading how he had to convince her that I am not a sinner. I am actually a very faithful man. Look, and he has to open up his chest and show he has branded himself with the holy symbols of the church, just to pass a simple test of like, am I worthy of being a police officer? That's the level of fanaticism in this universe. A normal citizen going like, I want to be a policeman. All right, get in line. Brand.
And can we also express the ultimate irony that the man that they venerate as their god wants none of it?
This is religious
Emperor
shit.
Never wanted him to be never wanted to be seen as a god, and everybody's like, "Oh, the god emperor." He's like, "No, I'm just a dude, man."
Yeah. What would be ironic is that if he comes back, he realizes, yeah, I may have to keep the religion stuff going to keep mankind.
Come back. He's still there. He's just a husk of a.
No, I mean in his full glory. I don't mean that piddly corpse emperor shit. I want the real thing.
Hey. Enough with the Star Child. I want to hear Saxius's view on some of these things. So I like to actually let everyone interrupt him.
No. Like I think I can go on and on. Rogue Trader. The fact that you can have an actual cathedral just yeet straight out of space onto a planet and go, here we are. We are here to bring the
amazing.
That's cathedral great. Drop pod.
Exactly. It's a thing you can buy.
Drop cathedral.
It is a thing you can do. Like, sir,
Commander, the enemy is upon us. They're the faithless. What do we do?
Just
drop
imagine
the cathedral,
but an actual Catholic cathedral floating through the air as the primitives on whatever planet you've managed to land on are like, what? And
nope. I'm just gonna say this much: if we ever play a game of Saxius, when he's done with Demon Lord, we have to get him to run Rogue Trader, so we can all go play. What's that?
Yeah, sure.
I'm there.
Because then there is no holding back on our craziness.
I'll play the Imperial Guard.
I'm playing either an Adeptus Astartes or a member of his most holy Inquisition, so I can kill all the heretics at the Xenos.
Well, no, wait a minute. I'm going to play an Orc because they're loud. because you can get a special dispensation.
As long as you're okay with me getting my heavy atomic flamer and burning you to a crisp.
Can I play an Ordo Malleus and I'm an Inquisitor who gets to
I'm
use demon
lost.
shit?
I'm lost in this conversation.
I am hearing problems. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm just gonna play a member of what is it? The Blackguard. Just get my fucking radioactive flamethrower, just burn all the fucking orcs.
Well, here's the great thing about orcs. They keep coming back once they're there.
Not with the radioactive fire, they don't. That's why they made them.
They have no problem with radiation.
They have no problems with that. They are
not with these. They literally designed these things to kill them. So I'm just like.
You don't understand orcs. They're DK.
Orcs are a fungus.
Yeah, they drop spores everywhere. And
but that's what the fire. That's what the fire is for, to burn away the spores.
Trust me, nobody has been able to get rid of orcs. There's no weapon that will completely rid you of an orc.
Well, I need to step in and correct that. There's one weapon that can get rid of an orc, of a really
mass exterminatus.
Yes, thank you very much.
But you're just ridding one planet of orcs. There's even the Tyranids haven't been able to Pac-Man their way through the orcs yet.
I still can't believe there was an Inquisitor who literally went, let's take the Tyranids and the orcs and let them fight. It's like, no, why?
But then you have blood axes who are orcs who work for the Imperium.
Well, no. See, what I love about the character of orcs in there is you can get the little, it's one of your little skills. You can get like Gretchens that just like hang around and like, he died. He'll show up like next.
I think you might have won me over for playing in a game of this because I like the idea of playing an orc who can fart out fungal spores.
Well, they have squigs too, which is awesome. The squigs, their entire wildlife is all fungus based. In fact, orcs can't grow hair, but because some of them want hairs, they clip hair squigs to their face and head.
Omen, Elf, John, we're gonna need to. The four of us need to sit down and educate Geek on Warhammer 40k.
Yeah, let's see here.
Don't you mean indoctrinate?
Listen,
well, you know what,
this is why I'm the.
Yeah, here it is. The Banefire guns are flamers that are highly. They use highly refined promethium fueled with a number of radioactive compounds to both burn and irradiate foes. They are effective against orcs and other xenos with natural regenerations and are only rarely deployed due to the cumulative environmental damage it caused. That is part of the Death Watch's arsenal.
Okay. Yeah,
so there is.
Yes, the Death Watch's arsenal. You know how many Death Watch there are out there? Like.
Well, wait a minute.
There's enough. There's enough.
No. Hold on.
You know how many orcs there are?
Wait a minute. All he said was it stops
a bit too much.
Generating. It doesn't stop them from spreading spores everywhere, and that was the whole point.
Oh man, Omen, why have you done this to the stream?
It's great. It's great.
Well, see, he can do that, but then it's like, nah, I got protection from the rogue trader.
Yeah. How do clerics and druids come into this game then?
The ecclesiarch or the missionary, they're all,
and there are primitive worlds, the feral worlds.
Well,
and
you
stuff like that, where they
Omenel
druids and stuff. Too.
Omenel, by its nature of playing a fungus man, is the fungus druid, and I, playing the Death Watch, am a cleric of the law. So I'm just going to burn him away, and then we don't have this problem anymore. See, there you go.
I'm the warp boy. Remember, I'm the warp boy that's in there because that's how they get into their whole religious aspect.
Remember, orc technology works because they believe it does.
Yes.
They actually have the ability in mass to affect probability and reality.
Yeah, not like a lot of people oversell how well that.
No,
yeah,
they
oversell.
Said if you open up their guns, they shouldn't.
Oh, I know, but I know, but it's not like they can basically say, oh, we can believe that we can kill everything. Like a lot of people but that's what oversell.
Wait, orcs don't want to kill everything.
Orcs go through the warp and on their spaceships by collectively singing and believing as they go. They sing.
I know. I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying I've heard.
Here we go.
Yeah, but go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I know, but what I'm saying is I've heard people oversell how powerful that effect is. It's powerful, but it's not like world-endingly
At least it's not
powerful.
the Jakaro, who are a bunch of orangutans who can run around and pick through your garbage and make a dreadnought.
Hey, DK, you misunderstand. Orcs don't want to kill everything. They just don't. Orcs want to fight.
They don't?
No, they do.
They kill everything they fight, though.
Yeah, but they get sad if they kill everything, because then there's nobody left to fight.
Oh, well, they feel so bad about it.
If you play an orc, you will grow until you die.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never grow feeble, I know, until you put a bullet in their head.
You're not a 40k chat, I promise.
To anyone joining the stream now, we were very much on topic for the first 2 hours and 30 minutes. And now it has
and then someone brought up Rogue Trader, and then it just all went downhill.
No.
Have you finished your list of topics to talk about, John?
We brought up the ecclesiarchy, which is clerics.
I asked Axius to talk about the ecclesiarchy and the equivalent clerics and priests within 40k because it's not just a D&D channel. And he purely and you went off into this weird thing about what you wanted to be in hating orcs. But anyway, my point was really hearing on what Saxius feels about this stuff.
I like clerics in 40k because you can be anywhere from a rather forward-thinking individual all the way over to the die-hard fanatical people, and they're mechanically they've got such a multitude of things, from a charismatic silver-tongued individual that can really be the face front for a group, all the way over to the hospitaller borderline surgeon that a group might need to stitch everyone up together. Because the game is so skill-based orientated, it's like that cleric can fit in for so many places, and they can also be able to go up there and assist with the fighters, the combatants, the assassins, the arch-militants, whoever. Like they are so utilitarian that it's not even funny. It's wonderful, because as a player you can literally go, I don't even need to be jack of all trades. I can literally say, this is what I want to be, and I'm not pigeonholed from the very get-go. I can go in so many directions.
40k is so huge and absurd that everything fits.
It's awesome. And on the topic of Rogue Trader, one thing that I do, which I think you like, Homenal, is that I actually find the original Warrant of Trade and I reword it so that there are specific loopholes that I intentionally put in there for the players to discover and abuse, because that's a lot of fun.
I've put this comment up just to torment Omanal, because before I want to, because Omanal, I would like you to address clerics in Conan because you're the expert on Conan. But before we go on to that, I want to divert Saxius again and talk about clerics in Shadow of the Demon Lord.
Yes,
we did have a cleric for one session, didn't we?
Almost. We had one player who was considering going for cleric. So
he died, though, didn't he?
He ended up dying, and
we buried him.
Yes, and he died. Another player considered it, but did decide to go against it.
Well, I don't blame the player for bowing out after you buried the last one.
No, I will keep killing players that show up. That is my mission. You don't go up. You don't come into this game thinking like, "Oh, I will have fun." It's like, no, I will live, please. That
was Gingerbeard. We buried him alive.
Yeah,
he was dead.
I was referring to the players, not the character.
Oh, right, fair enough.
No. Listen, it's about getting the best players. It's survival of the fittest.
It's like paranoia. Whoever makes you laugh the longest survives, and the rest of them just get Aztec.
Right. Jumping into what priests are like in Shadow of the Demon Lord. Basically, you have no idea if the gods exist. You actually have got no idea. There are only a very few entities. They're not gods, but they're entities that are actually so powerful they're considered to be gods. One of them being the Fae Queen, the Queen of the Elves, the Queen of all of the Fae. She is so powerful. She's venerated as an actual god, and for many of the goblins in our campaign, that is, they look upon her as like, no, she is an actual goddess. That is who she is, and she has the power to bring us back in and give us immortality like elves. Although there are many cults and beliefs, Shadow of the Demon Lord really puts emphasis on that it's so nebulous, and small things is what the players are going to get for signs. You're not meant to be communing with an actual god. You are to play to the thematic of the world. You are a small speck in the dark void that surrounds you, that wishes to tear you apart. If you believe that the powers that be that is granting you these powers, the ability to heal and to assist your friends, is good, well, good for you. You have no idea what it is. You don't know if you get the powers from the Demon Lord himself, or if it is merely another part of magic like wizards. You have no idea, and you will never.
Or if it's just the faith, or it's just the faith in the thing itself.
Exactly.
We don't know.
You have no idea. And
my character has someone he believes in.
Yeah.
Himself?
Nanny Herpes.
Yeah, Nanny Herpes is a spiritual guide for the
what
goblins.
The hell?
No. Welcome to Shadow of the Demon Lord.
Think of it like a hag name, you know. It's not. It doesn't have to make sense, you know. It's like a Jenny Greenteeth kind of a name.
No, it's not that it doesn't make sense. That's just disgusting.
Yes. Wait till I
don't like Shadow of the Demon Lord because I heard it had poop magic, and now it's just like, oh, there's a god who gives herpes. I'm like, no.
We made her up.
No. So okay, let's summarize. The players are all living in a barn. That barn is filthy. It's worse than a pigsty. I asked the players, who is the leader of your communion? And the group unanimously just went, well, we're going to go with a shaman-like character. It's going to be someone that we refer to as Granny. And because of how goblins give themselves like very postulant and like very simple names that are usually associated with some form of either disease or disfigurement or something of that form, they went with herpes. So their leader of their little warren or their home is called Granny Herpes. She's a spiritual.
Why are you playing this? This sounds disgusting.
It is.
It's wonderful.
But no, I was completely disgusted when a player, instead of in Aaron's game, instead of taking the mud that he had easily access to, he decided to pick up kobold poop and smear it on his face so he didn't appear in their infravision. I'm like, why didn't you just pick up the mud? You disgusting degenerate.
One thing you're really missing here, DK, and I'm gonna kind of defend their game for a second. This was completely player driven.
I know, that's fine. That's great. But I just think it's revolting.
They're having the fun that they want to have.
And I know.
And they're playing goblins. Exactly. It's not like he's playing, the elf with their beautiful enchantress Granny Herpes.
Yeah, that would just be weird. I just don't know. I don't know. I just don't like playing in environments that are degenerate like that. I just don't.
And that's fine. I'm gonna answer this question real fast about.
You're getting a Puritan hat for your birthday.
Only because there's like 5 minutes left. The reality of it is what type of cleric do you want to play? You pick it out, and it's really a class. You're in a priesthood class, and things are chosen from there. And then
Conan, is it?
Yeah, because it's a life path. Yeah, it's a life path, and so you pick over in there, and you say, okay, well, where do I come from? And then you pick your social class, and then from there you start picking, and that's the way it's done. It is not like a D&D cleric. In fact, a lot of clerics probably don't have spells. They are. You may get a few of them in there, but the way I would look at it is
access to magic in Conan is weird and rare. So
it's corrupted. I mean, it's up to the point.
Who knows if it even came from the god that you're calling out to?
Well, exactly.
Well, I mean, there are no clerics of Crom. There are no clerics of Crom because he gave you everything you needed. If you're praying to him for guidance, you've failed. He's not going to answer.
No. not only will he not answer, in certain cases he'll come back and make your life even more
Beat
miserable.
you.
Yeah,
He'll basically beat the crap out of you.
You don't want Crom's attention. Is the thing that you learn over and over and over in Conan.
Yeah, he gave you steel. Well, he left steel behind by mistake. You got it, and that's about it.
The whole thing is he gave you all the tools you need to survive, and it's up to you.
Exactly.
And if you're not using them, then you're insulting Crom. That's kind of what it is. How dare you talk to
me? Yeah.
And if Crom does not listen, then to hell with him.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, oh God, I love the Battle of the Mountain so much. I love that film.
But the whole thing is that it's that, and it depends on what you want to do. If you want to be a healer, then you get healing skills, and they do have some enchantments. You pick alchemy, so you can start getting this. But the great thing is, really, Conan is it's a skill-based system. Anyone can do anything over time, and it really what the priesthood does is it elevates your social status early on, and then it goes from there. But it doesn't mean that the wild man. Sometimes you'll get spells, but if you get spells, it always comes with a cost, and it's never a good cost. And they do have Mitra, and so you're really looking better with enchantments and things like that if you can do Conan. But that's about it. It's going to be the best way to giving a good example is look at the priest that you had of. It's not a D&D cleric. Think of it just like your old traditional, priest. of the biblical age or Egyptian ages and things like that. You worship, but you're not. The gods are the ones that do things, not you, and you're not trying to go, oh, look at me, I'm all powerful. This is why people go into magic, is so I can do, the raise the dead, and
think of how much Mako's character in the movie had to go through to get Conan back. A ritual, like an all-day ritual, and then fighting demons.
And what was the cost? Valeria was the one that died. It was a life for life. I mean, and that's what I like about Conan. But Conan's a very low. I mean, while it has magic infused and it has all this stuff in there, it's really a low fantasy game, which is the reason I like it. Those people who are playing D&D, even the first edition, that is a much higher fantasy than the typical Conan game.
Yeah.
Just like to give you an example, to get a healing, something that will actually heal you is like, that's almost like an artifact. It's the that's in the book of Skelos. They talk about there is a potion to heal. By the way, you have to roll to even know that there is such a thing, let alone trying to find it. And it's so hard. It's an epic level journey. You're like,
or you could just be chased by a bunch of wolves, get on top of a couple rocks, fall backwards, and find an Atlantean steel sword.
Yeah, but all it is it's a sword. There's nothing magical about that sword.
Well, I mean, it's an indestructible.
He just thinks that it's not indestructible because it breaks.
Well, no, that's his father's sword. That's his father's sword. Not
that's true.
The Atlantean father's sword. Yeah,
intact.
But
I would say that one.
Has Gamer just done something I need to know about?
Yes.
Yeah, he gave a membership. He gifted that to like 5 people.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gamer. Thank you, Gamer.
Yeah.
But that doesn't show up on my screen, so I don't see it. I don't see it because I'm not in YouTube. I'm just in StreamYard. So thank you very much. So
L became it. Myself, Grumpy Old Slam, Master Blaster, and Mage's Musings were all gifted a membership by Crafting Games.
Yeah,
that means Master Blaster's lurking somewhere.
Yeah,
he sometimes pops in on the Friday stream, so he's lurking. Yeah. Hello, Master Blaster. Lurker.
Hey, Master.
So I mean, I like some of those aspects. But yeah, if you're going to be the healer in the group, it's because you took the skill healing and you're trying to get herbs, and you're throwing the guy up with his eye because it got a big slash. Like, here, let me sew that up for you. But those are just different aspects. But like I said, I still love the 40K stuff, which is why I know Saxius comes into it, because sometimes you just want to be all out, crazy, insane, and 40K allows you to do that. Exalted does it if you really want to do that.
The nice thing about 40K too is you can play those like he was mentioning, the Ecclesiarchy. You can play it however you want.
Yeah.
And because there are so many different arms of it, and the level of faith and fanaticism varies from place to place. Sometimes it's very puritanical and like low key, like the space Jehovah's Witnesses. No offense to anybody who's a Jehovah's Witness, but like everyone I knew in high school was like, all right, that sounds boring. But
one game where
Crusade.
One game where you can't play a cleric, at least not openly, is of course Paranoia.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what is religion banned by Friend Computer?
There is a secret society, or various secret societies that do hint at religion sort of being there, but if you are open about your membership of a secret society, you get executed.
Killed. Yeah,
Yes.
why? Why is Friend Computer against religion, I wonder?
Hey, one last mention of a sort of cleric class is also the Jedi from Star Wars. They're a fighting religious order.
Holy crap! Look what Hungar just gave.
Jeez,
Hungar. He was hyped because we started talking about Crom, and
that's true.
He's trying to prove that Crom is strong.
Well, these people getting memberships here.
Yeah.
Right.
Look at all the lurkers. All the lurkers are being doxxed.
Right.
Oh.
I don't see any of that.
So Roland Bishop
it only appears in YouTube.
Well, he gave 10. I mean,
Malachi, Brian, James, Sadarok, Durlumen,
Jeff,
the
Undermaster ever alive.
Jeff giving the lemming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hungar.
Yes. He wants to have 10 people. The unfortunate part is, if Hungar wants to come in, I'll drop off. But I know you only got a couple of minutes. But
yeah, he's competing.
You can't.
We have got a minute left of this stream. We have a minute left of the stream. So
all right, let's go around and say thank you.
We didn't even talk about the holy classes and Oriental Adventures.
Oh, I love.
No, we didn't.
We'll take care of that later. We'll take care of that at another time.
We'll have to do a stream about that book.
So hey,
yes, that deserves its own thing. Well, if you're going to do that one, then you might as well do Mastika and Al-Qadim.
I know nothing about Mastika, and that's a shame because it was the one I always wanted. It's the one that got away. It's the setting that got away because I love Mesoamerican kind of stuff. So.
Well, we'll have to do some reading if we cover that in the stream.
But since we are 3 hours, let's start to wrap this up. Otherwise, Saxius may bust a gasket.
Right.
But hey, Saxius just became a member. Well, he was gifted a membership now. So.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
Nice.
So yeah, everyone make sure if you've been given memberships by Fat Gamer or Hungar, then just it's nice to see everyone saying thank you. So cheers, fellas, much appreciated. But we are going to have to wrap it up because we've reached the pumpkin hour for me. Because as always, I go to work on a Thursday morning, and it is midnight now here in the UK. So as always, I'm going to say thank you to everyone on my panel tonight. I would. Just before we go, I would like both Elfbait and Mage's Musings to shill their channels.
I'm easy to find. It's Elfbait is the name of the channel. It's on YouTube. I have a Discord and a Facebook, so you can find me there under Elfbait and all of them. It's just general gaming and miniatures and tabletop RPGs.
And you've got a stream on Sunday.
I do have a stream on Sunday, starting at 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time.
So that's 11 Eastern, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sean?
Should be early enough to get some of the folks across the pond.
Yes, I have new videos coming. I promise. It's only been a month. Mage's Musings.
Not good enough.
Recaps, theory crafting, general silliness with puppets. There's my tagline. I think that's a good one. Yeah, just check out the names right as spelled. Just do search for Mage's Musings.
He is the Muppet Master. He's the Muppet Master.
And of the people in chat, certainly Crafting Gamer / Fat Gamer has a channel, and Hungar has a channel as well. Both been very generous tonight, so drop them a subscription. Anyone else was? I know some other people with channels popped in earlier.
Joe the lawyer
Hungar
popped
has
in.
his own channel.
Joe the lawyer's channel. Yeah, he popped in earlier.
Yeah. The only thing I'm going to shill is my friend. I'm just going to shill my friend Sketch Bro for the awesome art on my avatar. Thanks, Sketch Bro, as always.
Fine. Thank you, Sketch Bro, for that awesome art. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. If you want, I can get him to do your character, or everyone here as well, if you guys want.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. If he's happy to do us all little pictures, then he's take a screenshot of us going or something like that, and do it.
I'll show him the stream. You just do a weird. No, he'll basically do your characters. Like, actually, just if you send the D&D characters for your Dungeon 23 thing over to me, I can give him that for some inspiration. He'll do something for you.
It's all in the Discord. All in the Discord. Yes. But thank you everyone for taking part tonight. Thank you, Elfbait. Thank you, Mage's Musings. Thank you, Data Fabinia. Thank you, Sextus, and thank you, Omanal. And Echo did pop. Echo didn't say much. He's quite new to these streams. He just popped into,
of course,
just to listen to what was going on, and that's absolutely fine. Not got a problem with that. Nice. I did a little chat with him before the stream started, and he's just getting back into gaming, which is good to see. But thank you everyone who's contributed in chat tonight as well. Good discussion as always. 2.5 hours roughly on topic, then off topic, then back on topic again, bouncing around at the end as we often do. But so what? It's all
business as usual.
Yeah. I'll be back on Friday night. We'll be doing Alone Against the Tide, and when we die in that, we're going to start off Warlock of Firetop Mountain again. Cool. So that's going to be Friday. Until then, I'm going to say good night for now. Thank you, everybody, once again. See ya.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Didn't mean keep Sextus too long.